I'm here. Councilor Jasati. I'm on.
Here.
Councilor Hendrickson.
Here.
Councilor Ludwig.
Here.
Councilor Mangini.
Here.
Councilor Nasuda.
Here.
Mayor Nelson.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Pisner. Here. Councilor Russo.
Here.
Councilor Santinella is absent, and Councilor Ungary. Here. 10 members are present, 1 is absent.
Thank you, Sheila. So let's just start with the Board of Education budget because I see the superintendent and some of the board members are joining us this evening. So we can roll right into the Board of Education budget. And I would ask if you guys are okay with it, if the superintendent has any changes to the budget that was presented.
No changes to date, no.
No changes. Okay, thank you. So the floor is open.
I'll speak for me if you want to just,
Go
yeah.
on.
I'll just speak for me that I'm not going to be a consensus member or approve any reduction to the DOE budget at all. So
I think I can speak for
I'm
our
happy to
caucus.
listen, yeah.
We are very happy with where the superintendent came out. He gave us the most detailed budget we have seen in a long time, which is what he was asked for. He was moderated in his request. He could have asked for more, and I think he should have asked for more. And our consensus is the request is reasonable, and this is what we hope people will accept.
There's no argument. It was a very detailed budget, but that just doesn't mean it's an open checkbook. Councilman, I thought he spoke for all of you. Go ahead, Bob.
I just want to make one comment.
Say that.
I did.
You did say that, so it's on record, you did say that.
What's that?
They're just giving me a hard time.
What? Because I'm going to say something, you're giving him a hard time?
He said he
he
spoke
said
for all
he
you,
spoke for all
bud.
of
Joe, relax, you got the floor, bud. Yeah, go right ahead, we can go back and forth, let's do it.
It's a
Let's start the meeting right off.
Whoa, 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 point of order. Bob, Bob.
Let's go, brother.
John said he spoke
I
for
know,
all
but
of you.
but I
That's
had-
all it
but
was
I had-
about.
but I
He
had
was
something to
kidding.
say.
I understand that, and nobody
Okay.
has a problem with it. So we're not gonna start tonight off this way.
Started off with me.
I'm not,
Okay,
but
then.
you're the one
Just
who's
let me
getting
say
mad when he
I'm not
cracked a
getting mad.
joke.
I'm just looking at him, that's all.
Go ahead.
All right, I'll tell you when I'm mad, all right? First of all, in regard to this, to the education budget, all right? In order to have anything of high quality, and we're talking about a high-quality education, it costs money. This budget that we have just maintains it. Okay, all right? And I think you even told me that yourself, that in order to have high-quality departments, it costs money. So I'm just gonna leave it at that.
Okay, I never quoted that. What I had said is if we had an open checkbook, we would all fully fund education. And as far as money, buying a quality education, well, then I don't know how South Windsor's pulling it off with more students and less cost per student. Because they're doing it and their education is a lot better than Enfield's. So maybe we should sit down with them and find out what their secret is. So this whole throw money at a problem doesn't solve
I'm
it.
not saying we're throwing money at a problem. I'm saying to maintain an education, to maintain what we have, this is what he's asking for.
And I understand that. And what I'm saying is we all know we have problems within the Enfield school system. And it's not the teachers, it's not the administration. It is all the unfunded mandates that are put on our staff that we can't fight, and it needs to change. And I said it last night, and I'll say it again tonight. So stand with us, and let's go to the state and demand changes. Because if we don't, Enfield is far from the only town in this situation. The whole state is. And until we can get our legislatures to change things, like the boy who came up last night and said, he's in 5th grade, and a student threw a chair. He said that. That's unacceptable. That child should be removed for the safety of the staff and the other children in the room. But that's not allowed anymore, and that's wrong. That's wrong. They get removed for a day or two, and then they're put right back in the classroom. And these are the things that need to be addressed, because no staff member should feel unsafe within our public schools. And I know they do. I know for a fact they do. You've seen the videos. I've seen the videos. I've seen teachers thrown to the ground by their hair. Okay? That's not right. And until we address those problems, it's just gonna get worse and worse and worse until we finally have one behavioral tech for every student in school. That's unacceptable. I get what you're saying, Bob, and they do a phenomenal job. But we need to fix the problems that are staring us in the face. And I'm asking, and I'm willing to work with the board. Let's come up with solutions. South Windsor, they don't have this big of problems. Is it because of open choice? Well, I think we need to look and try to find out. I'm not saying it is, but we need to address it and get on top of it and try to solve it. Because what we're doing now is not working. Bob Hendrickson.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had a question on, in the budget, it says the bus contract is still under negotiations, and I'm told it was settled. Did that number change at all, or that is the number in the budget?
That's the budget number, yes.
All right, because it says it was projected still in the
Yep.
budget book.
Speak
I
up.
think it's the old number, Steve.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have left.
Steve, come sit at the table. Please,
Yeah, everybody should be
please.
sitting at the table.
I don't do anything until I'm requested to.
Everybody should sit at the table.
Okay, the contract for the buses is already set up, like we already signed the contract for 5 years. What happened is that until the next year, we have to talk with them and tell them how many buses we're gonna need it. So we don't know that yet. So we have to give it to them, like the projection of how many buses we're gonna need it. And
The budget number it's accurate to date as of right now, but it makes an assumption. So we're going into a new transportation contract. Like Lorena said, we're year 1 of year 5 next year. We made an assumption because what we did is we believe there are significant efficiencies that can be made in terms of the bus runs. So we went out and we purchased bus routing software. Directly connects to our student information system. John Daigle is actually being onboarded with that, I think, starting Thursday.
Yeah.
So we made the assumption that we could remove at least 4 buses. So when you projected out the percent increase for the contract, but yet you take off the 4 buses, we were coming in the ballpark of about that number. So that's why I kept it projected. Now, I don't have a magic 8 ball, but I'm significantly confident that that we may be able to remove more than 4. I know that for the parochial schools in town, I'm gonna be looking at probably removing at least 1. We know the numbers of students that ride them, we know the numbers that they need. So I mean, I'll work with the heads of the parochial schools to work through that. But as of right now, it sort of still is a projection.
Okay.
We're doing a significant campaign because it's bothersome to me. I think I heard from a couple of different folks about transportation. The gentleman last evening said to look at transportation, and he compared us to South Windsor. And if you'd like, I can compare you to South Windsor. We are actually a per pupil expenditure lower than South Windsor. So I don't know exactly where we're getting the information from, but I can pull it straight from the state, and that's what I did. Because I wanted to make sure that I had information based on that gentleman last evening. So our transportation, we have buses that have a lot of open seats. So we're gonna be putting some things into place because we are required to provide a seat should they wish to have one. We want to work with the parents to say, hey, listen, if you know that you're not gonna be having your kid ride the bus, well, I wanna work that into our routing software. So that we say, hey, maybe we don't need 2 more buses, maybe we don't need 3 buses, maybe we could get rid of 6. I don't know the number, that's why the projection.
Okay, no, I appreciate that. I appreciate the software trying to reduce the cost. It's something that people talk about, the empty buses driving.
And nothing drives me more insane than when I go over to one of the primary schools and there's 10 kids on a big, huge bus that can fit 52. But that's right now, we have sought, I give them a little too much credit. We have bus routes right now which are built on every single child. We're looking at doing it differently next year. If we were sitting here next year at this time, you're gonna have a locked-in number for sure.
Okay, no, I appreciate that very much. Another question on the clubs. Is that a stipend fee that's put in all these clubs? So the teacher.
It's part of the teacher's bargaining unit.
Yep, okay. Also, non-English speaking, or teachers for non-English speaking students, is that a state mandate on a number of students, or do we just, how do we come up with that?
In terms of the
How many
student to
weeks?
teacher ratio, it's about sort of the number of service hours that they need to have in order, and the level. So we have the spectrum of kids. We have kids that can speak no English at all, so you're gonna be spending more time with them. And we have those that are really, in a way, I'll say, graduating out of the program, so they're gonna get less time. We've seen increases in terms of student need, that one specific, in terms of teaching English to non-English speaking students or limited speaking English students. So we have seen a continual increase in need. I will say that is a certified staff member who was reduced as part of the budget cuts from last year. What we're asking for in our multiple tier process that we went through here, we started off with a single edition, but we continued to have more and more move into the town. So now, as part of the tier process, we did ask for the second one as well.
Okay, and I guess last question here, just because I'm a hockey coach, or former hockey coach, can't do it anymore, but Twin Rinks, a big increase on
Yup.
rinks, and do the students, they pay a fee already, do hockey players pay more? Is there, where are you on that?
Well, the fee went up from
Well,
Twin Rinks.
that part I know, but in terms of the cost for the hockey players,
Last
I
I
believe,
heard, it was like $300 a kid for hockey.
yeah, as compared to the typical amount. I can get you the full number.
Yeah, I just see a big increase, and I didn't know if that was Twin Rinks.
That's Twin Rinks raising their,
Yeah.
it's Twin Rinks raising their
It's
rates.
the only one in town, so I.
It's either that or what's the next closest one? South Windsor maybe?
Probably go to Massachusetts.
Well, and you're not gonna get into Massachusetts. I'm from there.
Me too.
And the Olympia is
All right,
from morning until night.
it's good for me, thank you, Rick.
All set, Bob?
Yeah, for now, thank you.
Jeff?
Can I go back to the buses? I want to hit the afternoon portion, the sports. If I could hit the afternoon part, the sports, all right? Just signed another 5-year contract with Smith Bus Company.
Mhm.
So they're our previous bus company. And I guess my question is, what assurances are they giving us that they're going to meet demand to transport kids for away games for high school sports? Because it seems to be a pretty big issue. It's been an issue in the past, and it doesn't seem like it's been resolved.
It's an issue in every single district. This is not a Smith bus only issue. You cannot find bus drivers and it's across the state. I understand the
Yeah.
frustration and it's not an out. I'm not trying to take an out, but this is an issue across the state.
I'm not really hearing about issues with teams coming to us. I mean, my kids' games are never getting delayed because we're waiting on a bus from another town. It seems like it's always us going out. So we had issues with soccer last fall a couple times. We just recently had the cross where the bus got delayed on an hour and a half, 2 hours. Out to Weathersfield, these kids went to school at about 7 a.m. They didn't return to about 9 p.m. That's a long day for them. They should have been back around like 7:30, but everything got delayed and pushed back. They were hanging out for a couple of hours after school. Kids don't have licenses, maybe they don't drive. What do they do for a couple hours? It sets everyone, inconvenience for everyone. The Weathersfield town, parents, players, it's just a mess. And then I also hear, and I'm trying to confirm this, I hear the track and field team has to leave early tomorrow. Has to leave school early because of a busing issue. Trying to confirm that, it's just information I got before the meeting, but it seems like it's a huge issue. So What's the penalty for them if they're not able to meet the demand?
So the new contract does not have penalty in there related to athletics. The new contract does have performance standards on the day-to-day basis. Athletics is an additional above and beyond. So we pay a per hour rate for anything above and beyond. We get charged for athletics just like we would if we were hiring a bus for a field trip. I believe, and one of the reasons why we went to the bus routing software is if I can reduce the number of buses, then that means that they have more bus drivers available. Right now, they have a problem with athletics because they don't have enough bus drivers to literally drive the buses. So if you have less routes that you require, then you should have more drivers available to be able to pick up the afternoon. We did reduce down a few routes already because I pushed back on Smith. They took a couple of the different elementary routes, combined them together to potentially free up a bus driver. Unfortunately, when they have 2 or 3 staff members call out on a given day, we run into the issues with buses.
It's a continuing issue and it's frustrating for a whole lot of people. So hopefully we can resolve it. They signed a new contract. I would have liked to be some type of assurance or to be able to meet the demand, some type of penalty or consequence. If there's not one in there, what's the incentive for them to improve? So that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, there are significant penalties in there for the daily bus run.
But nothing for after school.
The after school bus run is a per hour rate.
All right, not happy about that. And then moving on to credit recovery teacher. So that's in the budget as an ad. I got 2 high school students. I asked my sophomore today, what's a credit recovery teacher? She said she's not exactly sure what that is. It has something to do with credits. And I said, okay, that's smart. I get it. It has something to do with credits. I asked my freshman, same thing. What is a credit recovery teacher? What does a credit recovery teacher do? What's the job function? And she said, Dad, what is that? So if you could probably.
I would be no surprise at all why, I'm assuming, I don't know your kids specifically, but if they are not having difficulty passing their courses, they would have no idea what a credit recovery
teacher is. Right, so that's a good thing that my kids don't know what a credit recovery teacher is. Okay.
That's about as good as them having a really strong relationship with the assistant principal.
All right, well, let's say their career, their grades start to go downhill and they have to have interaction. Can you tell me what the job function of a credit recovery teacher? And is this an ad, or do we already have credit recovery teachers, or is this something new?
We have one 0.4 credit recovery teacher. This would be the addition of a second 0.4. It's a part-time position. That part-time position it's literally exactly what it states. They are to assist students who have lost credit to recover credit so that they are not a half a credit or a full credit behind. They help them work through online coursework and things of that nature. The days of all kids going to summer school have sort of passed, and you do credit recovery along the way as you go. So it's that type of teacher.
Okay.
It helps to keep them on track for graduation, which is one of the major indicators that we have that hits our performance index.
So these are part-time positions?
Part-time positions, no benefits included.
Okay. I noticed the gist of what I got from your presentation, it seemed like there was a high focus on math, at least that genre curriculum. Are we not doing well district-wide in math? Is struggles with that as opposed to other subjects, or did it seem like it was heavier on math more than any other subject? I just want a little more education, clarification on that if you could.
Absolutely. A lot of it is about the mandates that are coming down from the state. So at the high school, a couple of different factors come into place. Our Algebra 1 classes, our 9th grade classes, typical 9th grade classes are very large. Algebra 1 is a foundational level class. If you're having extreme difficulty in Algebra 1, it's going to then move on to geometry and Algebra 2 or statistics, whatever it happens to be. So we really wanted to try to lower those. So that's a portion of the mathematics teacher. The second portion of it is there is a very long credit name. I'm just going to call it personal finance for simplicity's sake. Personal finance is a mandate that came down from the state that we can require it or not require it. We can offer it for graduation credits as part of your math that you can take. It's a great option for a kid or for a student who's not going off to a 4-year school or even a 2-year school. They don't need to necessarily go to Algebra 2 and learn about exponential functions and graphing, but they need to have real world experience and real world knowledge related to mathematics that personal finance class is one of those pieces. So the additional person at the high school allows us to offer additional sections of mathematics, and it allows us to lower the class sizes for mathematics. There's a significant emphasis on math interventionists, absolutely at JFK. It is an abomination that JFK has a single math interventionist for the number of kids that are in that school. So what we've put in there is a breakout of math interventionists over the course of different tiers. One of them earlier tier than the other one. The goal would be, a proper setup would be to have a math interventionist for every grade level at JFK. And that is because, yeah, I mean, we have room to grow in math.
And just one last item. So during your presentation, maybe I missed it, but I heard JFK Middle School sports, so I'm glad to hear that that's in the budget.
Ninth grade.
Freshman, okay, high school, freshman, high school sports as well.
Every club or activity that was reduced as part of the budget cuts last year is in this budget. That's sports, that's extracurriculars, that's everything. Clubs, everything is back in.
Fully funded. Jeff, fully funded.
Right, well, I mean, the kids do, like, we still charge $100 per kid. The families do contribute a little bit.
Yes.
So it's $100 per kid. Is it for every sport, every athletic grade? It's the same across the board.
Yeah, so what I did in the budget is, middle school is obviously the emphasis that I believe happened as part of the budget cuts. Save Our Sports, thank you very much for the funding that they provided. So we put a line item in, a revenue line that you will notice in the budget. If you get to that portion, you'll see red line or red numbers. Those are all of our revenue lines. There's $75,000 that's been placed in the middle school sports section. They've already provided us the check for $100,000. The reason I put $75,000 is I have a 3-year plan so that we will slowly and incrementally place it back into the budget so it is fully funded by the Board of Ed following the end of that 3 years. But everything's back in. Number one thing I heard from kids, they wanted their sports and they wanted their extracurriculars.
All right, very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilman Mangini.
Thank you. Thank you for your time and all the hard work that you're doing. And to your point, Mayor Nelson, I agree with you on the unfunded mandates. They're out of control. However, this budget needs to be looked at with what we're dealing with. We can't, wave a magic wand and say, okay, we've got May 12th, we've got to vote on this, but let's get down to the state and let's change things. It's not going to happen that way. You know that and I know that. So we need to focus on what's in front of us. So I am definitely going to support the Board of Education requested budget, which brings me to my question. In the handout from our superintendent, it said 5.57%, but in our book, on page 2 of 2, for the Board of Ed, it says 5.86.
Yes.
If I might, there was an error when the book was originally put
Oh, okay.
together.
So it is 5.57.
It's 5.57.
Okay.
Yeah, the 5.86 was
The very
January.
first.
the January 28th.
Okay, I just want to get clarification on that.
But it is correct on the town's website. Now, you have a revised one. and that's-
Sheila gave me a wonderful tour of many different locations within the town and brought me around to different people so I could make sure. I was a little stressed when I went through the book and noticed
I
that.
just want to make sure I understood the
Yeah,
difference.
5.57.
Because I had to take Algebra 2 twice.
It's not an easy course.
You weren't there for me in 72, so. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thanks. I'm good. What are you smirking at?
I'm just thinking back
Hey,
when
I
you
graduated-
were in school, you used to use rocks to
I
move them around.
graduated with highest
No,
honors.
slide rule.
It took me a little bit of time.
Actually, Steve taught my physics class back in, I think, 95 or 94.
And that's why you're so
Um,
smart.
Your ex-girlfriend Becky Wing said to say hello. I had PT today. She goes, "You're gonna see Russo."
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah, I will, and I'll make sure on camera I mention that you were his ex-girlfriend.
Oh, boy.
Oh, you're kidding.
My wife is listening. Somebody take my phone, turn it on.
Hey, first of all, I said ex. And you were probably 14.
Well, it also goes to show you that Steve is older than me if he was teaching me.
Yes, and I'm feeling older every day.
He's
For
getting.
real? You taught him?
He was in my, when I was doing my student teaching at Agawam High School, Jeff was one of my students.
Oh, I thought you guys were kidding around.
No,
No, Jeff said that
And
the
clearly
first
I
time.
drove him immediately away from the science field.
I don't know,
Although a detective is close.
I remember getting an A+, I don't know.
He was quieter back then.
All right. Deputy Mayor.
I just have a couple of clarifications. So on the handout, it looks like you're looking for 21 regular classroom teachers under certified.
You could go this way.
Because that's what I wrote down in the budget presentation. So I'm looking at that second page here.
Honestly, the best one, yes is the answer to your question. There's
Okay.
21 certified staff that are additional that are included in the budget. If in your book or the updated information, if you go to the FTE report that
Okay,
I included in there, it will give you administrators, 0 additional, 21 certified, 1 non-certified, 11.9 non-union. is the
okay,
breakdown.
and the non-union, I had written down behavior techs, that's pretty much what that's gonna be, and there's 1 para is all you're looking for. Because under the non-certified, I have para on top.
The non-certified is actually a nurse. It's a part-time nurse.
Okay, so that's gonna be a nurse.
Yeah, there's no additional pairs that have been requested
Okay.
through IEPs, but there are behavior techs because the behavior techs are directly associated with the specialized programs.
Okay, and so that will bring us to a total of how many teachers, you know? I mean, I couldn't.
21 additional certified staff will bring you to 446.5.
Okay. Do we know how many teachers we had that we hired with the COVID dollars? I know there was teachers.
Oh, I have your information.
Yes, thank you. I'm just trying to do some quick math.
Sure. Well, I'm not gonna say you, and I'm not gonna say me, because it wasn't me, but, teachers, there were 12 certified staff that were hired as part of, well, this is broken out a little different. 12 certified staff, 8 social workers are considered certified staff, so that's 20. There were 4, teachers of English as a second language. You keeping track of this as we're going?
Yeah.
Okay, it's 24. A tech integration teacher is 25. Transition teacher, that's a special education teacher. Our ETLA program, our 18 to 22 plus. So we have 26. That's it, 26 teachers.
So,
In total for staff, there was 105.5 staff members. Now that includes the 18.5 security officers and things like that. But I will say we hired, or over those 4 years of our BESSER dollars, there was 105.5 staff members that were hired. And last year we let go 127.5.
Okay.
So.
I just wanted to do the math. Because I remember that there were dollars used,
Mhm.
which was part of our argument that they were hired with COVID funds that we knew were going away. I just wanted to clarify that. Okay, and so we're looking at 4.
Yeah, I mean, I could take you through, I did.
No, you're close enough. I just wanted to look at the numbers. A couple of questions I have on page 1 of 2, and in that summary. You've got a lot of zeros going in here. So when we're looking at the differences, 100%. So if you go down to loss, prep, period, comp, that's down 100%. So you took 59,000 out. Substitutes, LTS, illness, maternity, down 100%.
Yes.
Um,
I'm gonna cut you right to the chase,
Okay,
if
go
I
ahead.
may.
Yeah.
It's double budgeting in my opinion, so I removed it. So let's look at, the last one, the long-term sub, for example.
Okay.
So if I have a person who goes out on, a significant leave, a period of time, whatever number of weeks, and I have to go out and I have to hire a long-term sub. After a certain amount of time, if they don't have sick time, they're not getting paid, right? So they're out, but they're not being paid. And I'm utilizing the dollars that we had budgeted to now pay the long-term sub. Additionally, as you know, it is a buyer's market in terms of being able to hire for positions. We have open positions. So if you were to look at our financial report, or as we discuss it each month at the board meeting, there is dollars that are left in our salary account. So I'm using those dollars that are left due to the open positions. Every day we have an open position is money that we're not spending.
Okay.
So I'm reallocating that towards those positions. I don't believe, in my opinion, over my 6.5 years of doing this, that I've ever run into an instance where I've run in the red under salary amounts, and I've factored in all of those different pieces.
Okay, well, that makes sense, but I just saw a lot of these 100%, 100%. I'm like, how can that completely go away? So that was a great explanation. Thank you.
It's, as I did in the discussion, obviously, this budget's built on priorities. You notice the priorities. You know, Mr. Russo clearly saw the priority of mathematics for us. The priority of class sizes is in there. That's why we have the number of teachers that we have that are included. The priority for our specialized programs, because our staff need the support and our kids need the support. But at the same time, we make some assumptions. I have to make some assumptions because, you know, we call it a budget, but it's really our best guess at an estimation of what it's going to cost us for the following year. One kid moves into town that's special education, it's an outplacement, this whole thing gets changed, all right? There's major fluctuations, so I have to make some assumptions. That's one I'm very comfortable making.
The other question I have, social workers.
Yes.
I know there's a need for them. Are the social workers split up? Is there any way we can use social workers for multiple schools, or do we have one per school, some have two per school? Is it?
Right now they are broken up, and right now it's not an effective model that's working for us. The number of 911 calls that we're making, where we're supporting kids to hospitals and things of that nature, because they're spread thin. So what we did for this budget is we put in 3 social workers specifically designated for those specialized programs. One is the SOAR program at the high school, so it would be just working with those kids. We would have a social worker that's dedicated solely for Eagle Academy, our highest need kids. And then we have another one for JFK, because JFK SOAR program is increasing by the day. So we're adding another classroom over there, and we would be dedicating a social worker for that program itself. And then the other social worker is obviously still within the building.
Okay, so this is gonna bring me to my final question.
Can I finish up on social workers, please?
No, absolutely.
If you don't mind?
Sure.
We had 8 social workers prior to last year. Last year, we had cut 2. So we're actually down to only the 6 social workers that are across the district. So you have currently, or excuse me, I should say, there was 8 social workers that were hired as part of, to go back to that ESSER funding, to try to spread these folks out to different places. 2 of them were reduced last year as part of those budget reductions. And the staff has been phenomenal. February got to be tough, March got to be tougher, and I think we all know that we all needed to go away on April break because, I mean, they were hanging on by the skin of their teeth. So they needed some additional support and assistance. So we believe that those social workers being more strategically placed at those designated programs will be of major benefit to us next year. Sorry to cut you off.
No, not at all, please. My last question is this. And nobody can give me an answer. Our teachers are struggling to maintain a classroom because there are students that are disruptive in the classroom. And that happens from an early age all the way up to high school. What resources do our teachers have when they are feeling threatened by a child? When they are being bullied by our students? Our teachers have no recourse. And I've heard this. I can say anything I want to a teacher. They can't touch me. They can't do anything to me. What are they going to do? Send me to the principal? How are we going to fix that? That's what upsets me. So where is the line? Where is the line? Because honestly, I agree with the mayor on this. Money isn't going to fix it. I don't think smaller classrooms are going to fix it, although I want them. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I do not. I do want them. We need to fix the problem. Is it a state problem? Is the teachers union the one saying, you can't touch a kid, you can't tell a kid they're being bad, you can't grab a child? When do we say enough is enough? Because if we don't fix it, it's not going away. And money will not fix that. So I admire our teachers. I admire the social workers. I have nothing but respect for the paras that are in those schools on the front lines every day. Because honestly, I don't know where they get the patience. But again, when did the schools become the healthcare and mental health providers for our students? That, to me, I don't think that money's going to fix it. So where do we start with that? And we're not the only town struggling with this. But where do we start with that? Do we go to the state and say, what do? All the special ed funding in the world is still not going to control. And the kids that are there to learn aren't able to learn. That's what I struggle with. Is there an answer?
Oh, not a simple one that I'm going to be able to give you over the course of the next how many ever hours we're going to be in here. That is a very deep rabbit hole that we can go down. That has, I'll use my spider web analogy. I mean, there are so many different pieces coming off of that come into play. Related to why kids are sort of behaving the way they are these days. And I'm not going to blame it all on the COVID pandemic, but that is a player here. Obviously, society itself is a major player there. There's social media is a major player there. There are so many different pieces that come into play on that one topic. Representative Santinella knows this more than anybody in terms, because he's read all of those legislative documents that are coming down the road. Legislation is a portion of that as well. I mean, for some of it, we're handcuffed in terms of what we can do. Related to, are you allowed to put your hands on a child? I think the lawsuits alone are clear indication that the answer to that is no. Unless that child is directly going to be an endangerment towards themselves or others, we will not be placing hands on children. We have had parents beg us to literally drag their child out of their car and bring them into school. We will not do that. That is not our role as a school system. So there's a lot of different tentacles to that one, and I'm not going to be able to unpack it for you. Culture climate will be a major portion of the district improvement plan that's going to be unveiled sort of later this summer, going into next year. And there has a lot of pieces within that. I don't disagree with you. I have 4 kids of my own. All right? When I sent my kids to school, I wanted them to be able to learn. I didn't want them to have to worry about student A, B, C, D disrupting the classroom. But I know the classrooms have changed. The classrooms have drastically changed from when I was a kid. And they're going to continue to change. But, it's for us, it's about, I've been here 9 months?
9 months.
Really?
9 blissful months.
Okay, I've been here 9.
I thought it was over a year.
No.
I appreciate that.
September 30th.
Trying to help you out.
Just feels I went and got a haircut today because I knew I was gonna be on camera and I want all the gray showing. But no, I've been here for 9 months, and what a clear indication for us is we have a lot of work to be done on our policies, our procedures, our protocols, and to make sure that they're being consistently implemented across all of our schools. I'm excited about the work, but at the same time, yeah, it's gonna take some time to sort of bring this thing back into play. I think if you had talked to some of the administrators, they will tell you that a couple of years ago, the buildings were much more in control. If you go back and look at that FTE chart that's included in your documents, you had a couple hundred more people that are working here. I'm not here to tell you, and I was never one to say to the board chair that we need a couple hundred more people. We don't. But we need more than what we have, and that's why we've asked for what we've asked for. I think by adding some additional of those specialized programs, some of those kids that maybe we can't fit into the specialized programs right now, maybe we have room to bring them in there. Down the road, when Eagle Academy has the ability to expand, we will have the ability to put elementary kids and move them from a SOAR program up to the Eagle Academy, because that's probably a better placement for them. So that now gives you room at the SOAR program. So it's a trickle effect, but unfortunately, that's not gonna happen for 5 to 8 years probably, hopefully, knock on wood, that the pre-referendum work continues. But yeah, it's not gonna be a quick, easy solution, I'm sorry. We're trying to provide some additional services and assistance to the staff. The staff have been phenomenal. I can't believe what they've done with 33 kids in a class at times, because when they're in the specialized program, they're not there all day only. They actually are included with their peers at times. And those rooms weren't built. Memorial School was not built to house 33 kids in a classroom. And I would never tell you to build a school that can house that many kids. I just use that as an example. So there's a lot of different pieces that I'm sorry, I don't have a simple solution for you.
I didn't expect one. I was just hoping that there could be some light shed on it, because I think that is the basis of the problem.
And like I said, state legislation, and this is nothing against Representative Santinella, clearly has indicated that suspension and expulsion is the direction they want you moving away from. And they legislatively mandated that. So we have to follow rule and make sure that we build our processes and our procedures to match the legislation that we have at hand. And so that's what we're doing.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilman Ludwig.
First of all, appreciate, again, everything you've done. Again, I want you to know, it's not personal if I cut your budget, okay? I may be in a minority, but it's not
I've
personal.
heard you say that to everybody, Mike.
Do you have a doctorate by any chance?
A doctorate? I do not.
So, everyone goes to COVID. What would be an interesting, I'd love to actually do the research with you, is go back to full day kindergarten and full-time preschool. And again, remember when all this was sold 10 years ago, kids need to be in the classroom. I bet if we go back and start doing some research, we're gonna find out the more kids are in a classroom at an early age, the more harm it does for them as they grow older. I'm not saying there shouldn't be some, but I think that would be a fantastic, and I would love to do it with you, because I'm to this day, I'm against full day kindergarten. I'm sorry that those children should not be sitting in a classroom at that age all day long. And again, I think COVID's the excuse. And again, we can get into all the folks who wanted to put masks on kids and leave them on them, and then there's gonna be no side effects.
Just take the budget question.
No, but this is the whole point.
not a
This is the whole
budget
point of what this
question.
is. And first of all, before, I was respectful. Right? It is the point, because that's what our funding goes to. And so I think, so as I'm saying this to you, I think that's, again, we don't go back and look at all the money we're spending and all the things we've done. Has it really worked? Has it worked? I know it's not your job, but again, because the answer hasn't changed, right? We need to do more. We need to keep doing more. We need to keep spending more, because every kid change. But it's like, well, we never go back. Well, maybe some of the things we've done haven't worked. I know you're going through that process, the K-2 versus the other 3 to 5. We should be looking at all these programs. Does it really work? And I would venture to guess the answer is no. And the answer shouldn't be, I just need more money. I'm not saying that what you are, but this is the same argument when I was on the council in the 90s. We need more money. The answer is more money. That's it. That's education now, is more money. That's the whole debate around education. So, and having said that, have you done, I know you've done a lot of research, and I think you've done a lot of great work. Have you actually done a cost analysis where what the state says you have to provide versus what they fund?
What the state says we have to provide.
What you're saying, a lot of this stuff is, the rules we have to follow. It's interesting on the MBR, and please correct me if I'm wrong, the town cannot reduce your budget, but the state hasn't, I don't think, increased their funding in 10 years roughly, so how, again, is it really an MBR? I mean, let's use some word salad here. If the town can't do it, but the state can do whatever it wants, and again, the ECS cost grant drives me nuts. You assume 64% reimbursement, correct?
Let's make sure we don't.
The excess cost grant.
Thank you, I just wanna make sure we.
Excess cost grant, so I didn't want to into it. So the excess cost grant, you assume 64%.
Correct.
State should be funding 100 of their 40%.
There's a bill in front of the state legislature right now, as we speak, that
So
would
hopefully,
fully fund.
again, if it's.
Not 100%, but it would get us.
But still, I mean, if in theory, you're pro-education, it should be in your guardrails, I mean, if you ask me. And it's just me though. But my point is, have we done that analysis? Because the town's portion goes up every year, or at least stays flat, and it's only been a few years where it stayed flat. I think it would be an interesting analysis, so people understand, again, we're here, part of this is understanding where your money goes. And every year, no matter what we give you this year, we're gonna have the same debate next year. It's gonna be the same argument, don't cut education, if you cut $1, I mean, the argument never changes. And as adults, do we sit there and say, man, I'm flying into the bug light every year, maybe this year I won't, so I don't wanna get zapped. Maybe I'm gonna do something different. And so I think that's an exercise we should do, because it's roughly been around 28, 29 million for about 10 years. I know one point is a little higher, I think it was in the 30 millions back maybe in early 2000s. And I can't remember exactly how much the state gave. I think it's been right around 28, 29 million.
I can give it to you, I can call it up if you give me a second.
And regardless, whether you get some of the funding or we get it, it's still the state funding, to you folks. And I think, folks need to understand it, because, here we are, we're gonna have, this is not gonna change no matter how much money we give you. And because next year it's not enough. It's never enough. So at some point we need to change the conversation of how we budget. And again, that's just me. And so that was my question in the MDR, the excess cost grant, you're assuming 64. And I don't want to put it, I know Andy's not here, but last year when he did his budget, he said he assumed roughly 70-ish.
67.
67.
The assumption in this current fiscal year was 67.
So he assumed 67.
Yes.
How many kids did we actually get?
We have
I'm sorry, last year. I'm sorry, last year's budget.
Excess cost?
No, so I'm jumping all over the
Yep.
place. Excess is 67. So on that, last year, I think Andy said he was assuming 78 special education students would move into the
Yep.
district.
Yep.
Right?
So 88 moved in, 41 moved out, so it's the net plus 47.
Okay, got it. So he was conservative last year.
Yes.
Is that money being moved to your contingency fund? At this point, would you say you have a full contingency fund? I'm sorry.
Are you asking, are we anticipating that I will be able to move 2% of the fiscal year 25 to a contingency fund?
So if you.
I don't think it will, well, there's a lot of factors in that as well.
Okay, no, I understand.
We have, in this budget, I have really 2 payments in the MOU related to the monies that was borrowed or
So
thankfully provided by the town council.
Roughly, right?
It's about 550,000, I would say, is what I have estimated to take out of fiscal year 25 to send back as part of the MOU.
Yeah.
I do have some money built in as part of the 5.57 as sort of pre-purchasing to try to get that number to be a little bit lower.
So say you nail everything.
If I nail everything.
What would be your contingency fund?
Quick math. I would say we're gonna be right around $1 million.
Okay.
So if we forgive the payment of the 500,000, that would give you an additional 500,000 to carry over into next year.
That would probably put me right around 1.5.
Right. Which 2%.
The goal is for us to try to, the goal is to try to build up the 2%.
Right.
What we would call, what I call, I don't know what you call contingency fund. I call it the non-lapsing unexpended fund because it doesn't lapse, it doesn't go away.
That's fine with me, yeah.
It's unexpended funds that you have provided to
And that's
us.
what I'm getting to. We need to change the conversation on budget. right? We need to change the conversation. And so from the Eagle Academy, again, I know you did this analysis. What is break even? In theory, what is we call break even, meaning the amount of cost, the students we need to sort of cover, where we're not saving. So again, please correct me if I'm wrong. If we have to send a child outside the district, first of all, they're not in Enfield, which is the biggest crime. But on average, it's about 100, I'm gonna use 100, I used to use 100, to use that program. So part of that was at the cost perspective, that's obviously a cost avoidance. And then eventually, to your point, we expanded, we were able to bring in other kids from other towns, so now we get paid to do it. To again, provide a quality education to kids. How many kids we have in there, what is our,
Current enrollment, I believe, is at 28 right now.
Yep.
Of those 28 or 29, I want to say we have at least 1 or 2 that are tuitioned out students. Just two? And I want to say they might be from South Windsor.
At one point, we had a roughly 40-ish children that were getting services outside the district at one point before Eagle Academy was established. How many kids are out? We still have to, unfortunately, put them on a bus, they gotta go to another town.
No, I want to say we're up to 28. I can get you the actual number, but we were at 26 when I built the budget. We did outplace 2 or 3 additional students, but of note is those outplacements were at no cost to the district because they were students that were from other local agencies.
Got it. I mean, I think it's important, because I think, right, because if we didn't have the program, I understand, please correct me if I'm wrong, we would have, it's roughly 150,000, so that you do the math, right? That's the cost for that, and that we bring back. Is it possible? So as we look at so part of me, again, I'm being frank here, I don't want to pay more taxes. Okay, I don't. I want to be upfront, I want to be honest. Because right now, the cost for a young family, again, we talk a lot about young people. To buy a house in Enfield is outrageous. It's outrageous. Not only that, if they have to pay rent in an apartment. At some point, look, there's got to be a balance of, you got to be able to afford to live and enjoy your life. And our young people, some of the house price in this town, I'm sorry, it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable, and it's not your problem, it's our problem as the council. But that's when I look at this, I'm like, if you're a young family, you work, you both work in 2 jobs, you're paying $2,000 for rent in an apartment, it's outrageous. I'm sorry, I can't accept that. That's part of why I'm doing this. But, so if we could, if the Eagle Academy expanded, at what number, if you can, is it we keep all our kids here if possible? I know that's a rough, and then we can start, again, hopefully taking in some other towns. Is there a number, you know what I mean, as we do?
I would have to work to get you that break even.
All right.
I don't want to say right this moment what that number would be.
Yeah.
I know I provided, when we did the pre-referendum work, I gave you a lot of those numbers. But we can go back and I can work with Julie Carroll and see what that true break even number is. Again, I'll take some assumptions and say what we would charge for tuition and things of that nature. And it also depends on the space. Like
Correct, I get it.
How many we could bring in.
But I think that's part of the job of educating why we're gonna be asking for roughly $170 million, and it's still taxpayer dollars. And again, as our state rep has pointed out, we have 13 million in debt we already have. And that's a significant part of the budget.
But you also have to understand that even if we expanded Eagle Academy and had all the kids here, there would still be the need that there would be at least some kids that would just.
No, that's
simply can't
fair.
service.
But I think that's important for people to understand.
Yes.
I really do.
I think the expansion of Eagle Academy, and absolutely, there's always going to be a need to outplace a child. Because you can't have every service available.
I know, yeah, that's fair.
But as I said to Ms. Pisner, if we have the ability to expand, there's a trickle-down effect that we can, kids may need a little more restrictive environment. So maybe they're coming out of their classroom a little bit more. Kids who are in one of those structured programs can go to a more structured program likely. There is a trickle-down effect that will have a positive outcome for the classroom.
And so, you did a great job in your budget. Just a question. Will you at some point consider to go to match the town or do the same, the line item budget to a generally accepted accounting principles? So we have our budgets are sort of aligned when it comes to how we both do it. You did a great job, just curious, I know it's an option, you don't have to give me an answer now. You don't follow a line by line budget as a generally accepted accounting principle, the state gives you some latitude. You know how to do it, just curious if you ever go down that route to match what the town does on the,
Yeah.
Just that
I've never, I won't answer you right now, but I'd have to look at it, to be honest with you.
So
I
busing,
think I give you a ton of information.
busing, yeah, I'm just saying, but I
Yeah.
mean, you did, but, maybe probably, again, I'm trying to do.
Yeah, I only do what I do.
I know, exactly. But again, you have to also, we've also dealt with where you didn't get it.
Yep.
So busing, I was actually on a board at one point, if you can believe it. And we actually were thinking of actually purchasing, developing our own busing. How much, you don't have to give it to me now, would it be for us, again, this would be a great joint venture between the town and the board, do we do our own busing?
Well, you should get into special needs transportation.
Or something,
That alone
right?
is the same exact
I'm
cost
saying this
as
is,
the
if
bus.
we're gonna change the conversation, which we have to. I'm sorry, look, again, I'm sorry, this process has not changed since the 90s, and it's outrageous to me. Yeah, look, we can't cut my budget, but, okay, here's an opportunity where we could actually partner, just like the Eagle Academy, we're providing a service, a good service, and we can, again, cover our costs and not worry about, again, kids not going to sporting events.
Well, it's interesting you brought up providing our own busing, and I was going to go back to Councilor Russo's conversation about busing, because I actually had the athletic director approach me and ask me about the possibility of, he has coaches that are requesting, could they potentially go off and become bus drivers in the afternoon and bus their own sports teams? So I couldn't answer that question because it is a very unique way of looking at it. What I can tell you is I'm interested in looking at, for some of the smaller teams, rather than going through Smith Bus instead, and this would, I believe, have a positive ripple effect for the other teams, is in other districts I've been in, the golf team, we rent the van for the season. That coach is allowed to drive those kids. We have to make sure we put them on, John, I'd be coming to you because we gotta make sure we put them on the appropriate insurances and things of that nature. But now I don't have to pay Smith Bus, I use the van and they never miss a game.
So no matter what happens, I think this is something we have to explore. I think it's a good idea for both, anytime we're a joint venture. And so again, I know I've done a lot, and I appreciate your patience in answering my questions. Sure, I mean, again, it's funny, I'm sorry, this is more, and I apologize, I'm probably not gonna end on a high note, but, folks who come and say they wanna pay more in taxes, I appreciate it. Why don't we, or since you have a sporting, why not set up a fund where folks wanna actually write a check that they can donate to the schools? I mean, you can do it with sports, but you can do that, I'm not saying, all the folks who come and say, I'm more than willing to pay more, well, good for you, so let's see you write a check to the schools. I'm just throwing it out there, I'm not trying to be flippant or anything, but I know it's happened with sports. And if folks feel that they want to pay an extra $1,000, more power to them. I know I can't afford another $700 a year, so maybe I'm in a minority, but I also know young people can't afford a mortgage and pay the utilities in a $300,000 house that's not worth $300,000. And then still expect them to be able to absorb these kind of costs when those people just graduated from our system. So that, it's not just people who are over 50 who are on a fixed cost. Everyone who pretty much works for a living is on a fixed cost at this point. So, it's just another thing to think through. Again, I appreciate your indulgence, but like I said, there's some things, I really hope out of this process that, look, this just can't continue the way we do things. We need to think differently. And you folks are the educators. Let's sit down and start doing something different as opposed to every single year I need more money. And I'm not saying it's you folks, but that's basically what we come down to every year. It's money. And I'm sorry, education, money and good education really isn't one and the same in my opinion. Because there's a lot of smart people who came from nowhere. And they weren't given, so I'm just saying, that's why hoping we get off that conversation and start going, let's start doing some things differently and take some risk. And I understand for you it's tough. Right, if we decide we want to do a joint busing and it doesn't work out, hey, guess what? Hey, look, we're in a hole, right? I get it, but at some point I think we have to take some risk instead of doing the exact same thing every single year. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
All set?
I could go on, but I don't think
You want me to bring you a water?
I got one right here.
All right.
You might need another.
So I'm gonna go next. Then I did Google some numbers while you guys were talking, and I mean, the numbers that were presented last night may not be exact, but they're not that far off. For instance, South Windsor spends 2.5 million on busing. We spend 5.7 million, approximately. I got the right number here, and now it's going up. For transportation is now going to be, we just had it.
6 million. 6 million.
6 million. How is South Windsor doing it for almost a third of what we're doing it for? So I'm not gonna ask you to compare them to them, but I think a big part of it would be South Windsor kept their neighborhood schools. So they have a lot more walkers than we do. Okay, you can't change that, but for $6 million, and I discussed this with Councilman Ludwig last year, I think the town of Enfield should seriously consider getting into the bus business, because this is crazy. And when I hear stories that have been verified, that we have a student that doesn't play well with others, gets their own school bus, one student, one bus, because they don't play well with others. And that's what we pay for? Why aren't the parents responsible to provide the transportation? If they don't want to follow the school rules, we shouldn't have to make special accommodations. That should fall on the parents. And maybe the parents will step up. And that is happening. It's a fact. So another thing that I'm very concerned about is mass residents. Everybody, every school is loaded with mass plates dropping the kids off. So let's just say out of all the schools, 100 students maybe more. We don't know because nobody looks into it. And we need to.
I would correct you on that. We have looked into certain portions when we become aware of it. I'm not saying that we catch every single one, but there have been multiple students that have been removed from the district this year because we'll have Don Crabtree start following them to make sure that we know where they're coming from. I don't disagree with the mass plates, but I think that's also a factor of, and I'm just gonna use myself as an example. I had 2 kids that went to Parkland School. I was a teacher. My wife worked the night shift. She didn't get out of work in time. My in-laws would come from Massachusetts, drive to Enfield, watch my kids for 30 minutes, and then bring them to school. That's a Massachusetts plate. I'm not saying that's always the case, but there are cases, especially when we're a border town. East Long Meadow's not far away. I mean, Long Meadow's right over the border. I think there are some instances, but when we have situations brought to our attention, we have removed kids this year. And it's been at least a handful. I have sent certified letters to families, so even since I've been here, saying, to my knowledge, you are living in such and such a town. You have until Friday to remove your child and enroll them in, this one happened to be the Agawam Public Schools. Next thing you know, I have a residency affidavit that the child's living with the grandmother in Enfield. There's nothing I can do about that.
Right.
If they figure out the game in a way, so we have to go then have conversations with them about, okay, I understand that, but I'm sure the child's gonna be moving in with you next school year. Yeah, I mean, yes, I don't disagree that we are probably not able to catch everybody, but the ones we know about, we do go after.
So along that note, why are they coming to Enfield? Why wouldn't they keep their kids in Agawam? So the question is it because we provide more and better programming for special needs? I mean, something is drawing people from other communities coming to our town. Now, I know you can't answer that tonight, but I think it's.
I don't know if I can answer that ever.
Right, but it's a major, it's something major that I think needs to be addressed immediately. You've only been here 9 months, Steve, and you have done phenomenal things, and you still managed to get a handful and get on top because you're aware the problem exists. So if it's that obvious that you're aware it exists, there's gotta be a lot more going on. Next is South Windsor scores versus Enfield scores. You know, the numbers that I looked up are pretty right. If you add in the 15 million the town contributes to the Board of Education, Enfield does spend more per student than South Windsor. But South Windsor scores are twice as good as ours. We're below state standards. They're almost twice higher than the state standard. And I say, what, why? How? So
I think you're comparing two very different districts.
so let me finish.
Which,
Yeah, let me finish. I agree.
Mhm.
We have areas in Enfield, okay, that may create an issue within our school systems that South Windsor doesn't have, okay? But one thing South Windsor doesn't do that we do is open choice. And we have 100+ students that are coming into our community. And last year, when I looked at these numbers, I think, and I'm not gonna use exact because I don't have it, there were 107 students coming in as open choice, and 105 of them were some sort labeled as special needs, or whatever you wanna call it now. So what is the draw for you, the Board of Education, knowing we have all these problems with our own residents to where we think we can take on other communities? Shouldn't we focus on our own? So if we stop taking open choice, I understand they have to go through the system. They graduate through our schools. They joined us, congratulate, stay with us, and we will welcome you with open arms, but stop taking them. And if we go through the mass plates, well, open choice is 100 students. Mass plates, let's say, if we actually looked at the problem, maybe there's another 100 more students. There's 200. How many of them fall into the special needs category? Well, both of these problems we're ignoring. You're not with the mass students, but I still don't have a clear answer why we're taking open choice, other than the state of Connecticut mails you directly the check. And the check is not what the taxpayers pay per student in this town. So it's a lot less. So we are basically co-funding these students from coming from other communities on the backs of the taxpayers in Enfield. And I think we need to worry about our own students here in Enfield. If our residents wanted our children to go to school in those towns, with those children, they live in those towns. And, you know, South Windsor, great scores, good numbers, a lot less non-certified staff, over 100 less non-certified staff, which is behavioral techs, social workers, all these people. How? How is South Windsor doing it? This is a clear, obvious, I mean, they're like a sister city. Their numbers are very close to us. You know, what are they doing different? And we say we need to look at things. Well, it's staring us in the face right now. Busing, they're doing it for a third. Their scores are 3 times better than ours. And they got 100 less staff. They have more teachers. But if we removed 100 less non-certified staff, we'd be able to hire another 20 teachers. And these are the things that, like Mike said, we're going to be sitting here again next year discussing it. And we've got to start coming up with answers. Now, you can't answer any of them because I'm comparing you to another town, and I agree, South Windsor's a lot different. So running over the numbers, when you came back, the Board of Ed came back with a different budget than what you had originally presented. We went from 11 to 13 employees up to 20, whatever it is, 21 plus 11 non-union, right? Okay, so when I asked you to go over the numbers of how you were at 5.6 with 11 to 13, and now we're at 5.56 for however many you're adding, that's a big difference and a lower ask. The money came from somewhere. you started going and telling me where you came up with some of the numbers. First place is you're counting on $1 million carryover ballpark. You can't exact that number right now. And then you're prepaying us $500,000 from this year. So that's 2% that you will not have at the end of next year's budget because you're hiring staff with it. So that would be a 2% automatic increase you would have to fund just the carryover. Now, the discussion we had was, it was 4.1% is contractual obligations. That's what it cost the Board of Education to open their doors in the beginning of the school year, just for the contracts, for the increases in salaries with the teachers, and they all deserve it. Absolutely, all the staff. Is that a correct number?
At the time when we created the original budget, yes. I haven't recalculated that with the staff we currently have.
But everything is ballpark now, so, so 2% is not enough money for 21 teachers, or if it is, 2% plus 4.1 is 6.1%, and that doesn't count the 11.9 non-certified staff you want to hire. Where's the additional money coming from? And hiring all these people and knowing that you're spending money from this year to fund next year. What happens at the end of next year? I see us setting ourselves up for the same exact problem that happened last year. And I was more comfortable with your budget. Everybody's saying there weren't two budgets. Steve, you presented us a budget you felt confident with. The board loved you and they trusted you, and they called for a workshop and you guys come out and it's a totally different thing with a whole bunch more employees for less money. It makes no sense. And you said it's a risky budget. We wanted the audit done, not a forensic audit, just an audit. Find out why they got in the position they did last year. And that's not under Charlotte or the current board. But I don't want to set us up for the same problem at the end of next year. We're heading into a horrible year next year with revaluation. And I know you need 4.1 to level fund. But I just don't understand how you're hiring 30-something people with 1.4% more. The numbers just don't add up. It came from somewhere. Go ahead.
Okay, I was just making sure you were done. All right. The original budget, the major difference between the original budget that was presented to the Board of Education and the updated budget. The original budget had an $800,000 pre-purchase. That's been reduced down to $650,000. The reason why the number of staff has increased is because the savings that were included in the budget that we weren't able to include in the budget under the original was repurposed towards those staff. For example, the original budget did not have the $75,000 for Save Our Sports. So that's literally, I had already budgeted all sports and activities back into the budget. I then put a revenue line, or actually I shouldn't say, Lorena was then directed to put a revenue line into the budget for $75,000. That immediately drops our number down. We also had Lorena and Dr. Barrios, our Human Resources Director, as well as Julie Carroll and Tracy Craven, our payroll specialist, go through and look at every individual staff member that we have working. A month and a half later, we're able to reconcile all of the staffing versus the grants that we will be having and make sure that the percentages are accurately depicted into the budget. So there was additional savings with that because people that were within our budget should have been more appropriately placed into the grant. I mean, there were a couple that went the other way as well. We had updated funding that was based on the health and medical insurance. As Mr. Wilcox knows, we've been sort of scrambling around trying to get that health insurance cost to go down. Originally came in at 16%. We dropped it down to 14%. All of those savings as part of that were then incorporated into the budget. So there was 1% originally I was going to take down. Now 1% of our health insurance costs, ballpark, $250,000. I took 2%. So I dropped it down about $500,000. All $500,000 went back towards adding additional staff. The HMH Into Reading program, our K-5 program, we had one more year of payment on that program because I was new and because we went through and looked at where all funding was within the district. There was funding that was included as part of our district activity account. Prior to this fiscal year, when the Open Choice Grant would send you money, it would go into a district activity account. It didn't have to be allocated towards anything specific. My multiple predecessors, because this had been happening for a number of years, the money would come in, it would sit in an account, it would roll over and roll over and roll over and roll over. Well, not how I work. You will find in my budget, again, legislature says I had to, but I did it this way anyways. In my budget, you will find the amount of money that we will be receiving because of the Open Choice Grant for next year. That money that had been rolling over, I said, we're not going to let it just sit there. We are going to find a one-time purchase that we can get off of our books by using a portion of it. So we spent $171,000 and paid off our Into Reading program by utilizing those funds. So there's another $170,000. So by doing that along the way, I was able to basically take a whole bunch of savings and bring it back in by bringing it in through additional staff. That's the short version of it. If you look at the budget history page that you should have as part of this somewhere, you'll notice where we started in February 11th, that was before the workshop. All of those savings were identified, and then you'll notice the changes we made after the workshop. You'll notice that after the workshop, those are all sort of dollars that we're putting back into the budget. For health insurance, we did just sort of lump sum them. We build our budget this year by the individual person. So if I have an open position, I don't we say, okay, what's the dollar amount that we're allocating for that person? And how much are the benefits going to cost us for that person? So one of the items that we did, again, you have to make some assumptions. Some of our staff are not going to take insurance. I'm not going to not budget money for them for insurance. Some of our staff are going to take family insurance. So we budget sort of right in the middle. And we assume that, it's a single plus one type of plan. So when you go through and you look at those if I look at my staffing account, for the 446 and a half certified staff, only talking certified staff, there are adjustments and savings that we can make. Again, everything that we could find, we put back into staffing. And that's where you find the behavior techs that are being increased. That's where you find the special education teachers, the social workers, the TESOL teachers. I mean, everybody that you have in there. The rationale is included within this budget in terms of I clearly stated, I think since I arrived in the district, that I'm dedicated to making sure every classroom is going to be under 25 kids in a class. I need the staffing to be able to do it. We were able to barely do that with the first budget. I'm able to expand that with the additional staffing that we repurposed with the savings that were identified. That's the shortest version I can give you for that one.
So the proposed next year's budget, what's your anticipation for a carryover at the end of the year?
For next year's budget, I didn't build in an additional 2%.
Right. So,
but what I will say is the assumptions are there are staff members that we will likely not be able to hire, or they will hire mid-year. We'll have staff members that we hire that are going to leave mid-year. Our salary account, I think currently is at about $2 million balance projected for the end of the year. That $2 million is greater than your 2%. Some of that is used to offset the areas that we went over, right? Other portions of that will be utilized to go towards the unexpended. I would fully anticipate in the way this, I've seen this work from year to year to year, is we will be able to have, Mike, what was the word? Contingency that we'll be able to continue to put into the non-lapsing fund.
So
But I did not include a line
Right,
that says not lapsing.
right. So there is no line that shows 1.5 million to cover the year after's costs that we're using to support this amount of staff increase.
I don't think with the issues that we're having in the schools currently, with the behaviors that we're hearing about, with all of the different supports that we need to build back in, I did not put in a $1.5 million surplus line when I need staff, when my staff are getting burned out, when my staff are going to South Windsor for $20,000 more because our salaries are so much lower. I couldn't do that.
So that employee line that you talk about at the end of next year having money that you could use possibly for the carryover, how much are you gonna have this year in that line?
There's approximately $2 million right now,
In this year's?
this year's budget.
And where's that money going?
That's part of what we just talked about.
Well, you said you have $1 million carryover,
Well,
not
because
two.
you got let's say we got, right now, our budget balance is about 2.04 million as presented to the finance committee last evening. 2.04 million, I'm gonna send you a check for 550,000 because I owe you, I'm trying to minimize the amount I have to put into my budget every year for the MOU. So I said, let's send them a check while we have some additional money now, so we can lower it for every year thereafter.
Mhm.
So I'm gonna send you that check. So that takes our 2.01, it brings it down to about 1.6. I have 600,000, built in as a we need to identify one-time purchases, things of that nature, so that I can get them done and get them over with before the end of this fiscal year to help keep my percentage down. So you take my 1.6, you do the pre-purchases, and I'm at about $1 million.
Right, so, John, are you comfortable with them cutting 2% off the insurance?
Yeah, I recommended going down to 14% last week sometime. I've got it accounted for in the deliberation schedule.
Right. Well, contingency is, it's kind of like CIP for the town. We are using fund balance for our operational budget. It shouldn't happen because it's not guaranteed and your contingency is not guaranteed. And you're using $1.5 million this year to fund positions for next year. So I just don't see the numbers.
I'm confused on where you came with 1.5 million.
Because if we give you back the 500,000, if we don't take the payment for the money that you're prepaying us, you can keep it.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be part of the carryover into next year. Or you could prepay something else off this year. But still, it's money this year that helps cover next year's costs. And if we have no contingency in this budget, and we're starting $1 million whatever from this year's budget, that's not in next year's budget, at the end of the year, you're short $1.5 million.
So the only thing that I would need to build into next fiscal year 27's budget is, I want to say it's like $270,000. That's the MOU, the yearly payment I would have to make over the course of the 5 years. So that's the 270 that, I don't disagree with you. It needs to be built into next year's or fiscal year 27's budget because I'm pre-purchasing it this year. The 600,000, 650,000, whatever it happens to be, it's about how are we going to be able to identify the items that I can purchase one time that I don't need to have built into next year's fiscal year 27 budget.
Mm-hmm.
I don't disagree with you. If I just say, hey, listen, we're gonna buy all of our papers and pencils and it's gonna be a lot less than 650,000.
Yeah.
or people, right? Like you said, if I did it that way, then yeah, I'd have to build back in 650 because that's a fiscal cliff. I also have a major piece to go back to of the unknown being the transportation. I strongly believe that I'm going to be able to reduce more buses. If I can reduce more buses, then I've offset a portion of this. I understand, but I'm trying to slowly and incrementally build back, not to, I want to be perfectly clear about this, not to the levels they were before.
Okay, so building back, pre-COVID, or with COVID funds, per your budget books, you hired 105 staff members that were hired with one-time funds. That's in the books. Last year, 127 staff members were laid off.
Correct.
Okay, that's a difference of 22 employees. So we're already going above pre-COVID.
But if you look at our FTE report, we actually lost 200 people. Because that's just who we had to lay off. There were other people that actually resigned that we didn't have to lay off. They sort of took care of it for us, if you will. There is a page in the document, in your, should be in this one. I gotta try to find it here.
So you're saying you started this school year with 200 less positions?
You should have this slide somewhere. So this slide compares September payroll, our first payroll in September. Because that's, now we're going apples to apples, right? Because throughout the year, what happens is you hire somebody, somebody resigns, and then the payroll numbers, the number of people included in the payroll, they may be getting $0, but they're still in that payroll run. So it all of a sudden makes it look like we're getting more and more people. So when you compare this, in 23-24, we had 1,016 people that were included in that September payroll. September payroll of this year, 823. Now, I've also asked the staff, because I can't really talk about how they did things before I got here. But I asked the staff to dig in and analyze every single person in there. Maybe they had people that were gone, that were not listed as inactive in Munis. I don't know, but I can tell you for certainty, the 823 is our September payroll. That was our very first one. We're asking to go back to 857 for next year. Now, if you look at the rest of that graph, that's still lower than anything you had even back, I mean, I didn't want to go too far back, but 2017-18. You will not hear me say ever that 1,040 or 1,016 is the right number. That's not the right number. If I felt that was the right number, you'd have a budget that showed that. But it's not. It's somewhere in the middle. And that's, we did have I'll stop there. Go ahead.
So if you lost 200 employees, regardless, whether they were laid off, they left on their own, 200 employees, and the town didn't cut your budget last year. We gave you an increase last year. Where's all the extra money from all those empty employees' positions? Because you only.
$2 million in our salary account. That's why I still have $2 million in the salary account.
Okay, so this year, we didn't have to remove all those positions. We didn't have to have this problem be as extreme as it was, whether it was to prove a point to the council, whatever happened, cutting sports. And, you know, I don't even want to get into the fact that we've got very qualified volunteers in our community, but because a teacher's contract says they have first right to teach a sporting event they may have zero experience in, they get it over a volunteer. And that's why the kids didn't have sports last year. That's another whole separate issue. So we're filling all those positions that I just don't see the numbers. I don't see the numbers equaling out. I'm gonna leave it at that. It's special ed. Last year, not you, you guys beat it into our head. Special ed's out of control. We're millions. We got millions coming in bills that we don't have the money to pay. How is it this year, special ed, not one word about we can't fund it, we're short on money? Our bills aren't in to know how much we have to pay in special ed. That was literally beat into our brains last year.
I can't explain everything that happened prior to my arrival.
I'm asking Shirley,
I know.
because I'm concerned, because according to last year, you don't get your final bills for special ed until into next year.
That's true.
So Charlotte's agreeing with me.
Right, they don't send us the last payment until we close it out.
I'm trying to get you the projected number for special ed currently.
Well, I'm not talking about the payment, I'm talking about your costs.
No, that's what I'm,
Oh, yeah.
so currently, projections, because again, everything's by the child. Everything's by the staff member. The amount of detail these guys are being asked to do is head spinning, and I think she'll admit that. The poor woman probably sees me and runs the other way. So special education tuition outplacement for private, the original appropriation was basically $3.1 million. We anticipate the overall expense to be $3.5 million. So it is over, but we have it built into our projections. That projection, when you carry it all the way down, is where we're projected to be the 2.04 million at the end of the year. That includes, I think Charlotte already gave some figures about the number of special education students that came into the district this year, as well as those that left. But it also includes the 89 that have been Enfield students the entire time, but now qualify for special education services, because you got those kids as well. So we have over 100 additional special education students, whether it's new to town or have been in town, but we have it built down to the individual student.
Plus, when the previous budget occurred, they had budgeted that we would get reimbursed for excess costs way more than we actually got.
From the state.
Correct.
Yeah, I think you probably were in the 70s when you put it in. I mean, Mr. Longy projected extremely, he projected 67. That's a low figure to project. Reality is the state came in at 64, which is even less than he projected. However, the governor then put in an additional 48 million.
Right.
40 million, excuse me, 40 million.
300,000.
Yeah, so, which for us was gonna bump us back up another $300,000. So we're not really at 64% anymore, we're a little bit higher than that. And again, I spend a good chunk of my day following legislation. I think he can attest to this because I overburden him with emails sometimes. Hopefully some of this legislation kicks in and excess cost is $128 million more than it was, this year. Because that would drastically increase our reimbursements. I can't, when I made the budget, when we adjusted the budget, when we went through it, none of that had occurred. That was a early April move that the legislature made. My budget was down to you on February 26th.
All right, so I think this is my last question. The $1.4 million that Councilman Santinella went to the state and tried to get pulled out of the town's ECS and sent directly to you. That bill still exists. How do we know that bill passes or fails? Because if we fund you full on ECS and he gets his way, they're pulling $1.4 million from the town and sending it directly to you. So you're getting paid twice. And I still believe the way it was done was wrong. None of our state rep didn't know our other state rep didn't know this was going on. Our senator didn't know what was going on. And if it weren't for somebody seeing you in the building, we still wouldn't know about this. So To me, it was a way to try to backdoor you $1.4 million. But now that it's out in the open, what do we do about that? Because I only see one option. We have to pull the 1.4 million out of ECS and wait until they make a decision at the state. And then if they give it to you, no loss. If they don't give it to you, then we can do something at that point to, make you whole or make it part of the budget and agreement in the numbers that we pull off. And I know you understand, because we've talked about this. We're in a very bad position because of this, because we don't have the answer. Go ahead.
So this was coming, been waiting for this all night. So you and I had numerous conversations about the ECS grant, correct? About the Alliance carve-out, the Alliance carve-out, I apologize.
Well, which is
numerous
Alliance funding, which is directly comes from the ECS.
Right, which the way it works for everybody's understanding is there is a carve-out based on our historic ECS grant that every other Alliance district in the state of Connecticut has gotten, except for Enfield, right? Every other district. Three towns,
yeah.
Right. And so the reason for that is because our legislators didn't advocate for it. Plain and simple. And you wanted me to find out why, and I found out why. And I met with the Commissioner of Education, got to the bottom of the problem, and I did not sneak you into the state capitol in the dark of night to have a meeting that nobody knew about. There were 1,000 people around, correct?
Who from Enfield knew about it, John?
Quiet, I'm not talking, I have the floor, you
I
gave me
had the floor. You asked to ask a
Don't give me this
question.
bullshit.
I
have the floor, you called on me and I'm talking to them. I have the floor, you're out of line. You're out of order.
Absolutely, I'm
talking to
not.
them.
Who in Enfield knew they
I
were
knew.
going?
I
You
knew.
knew.
That's
And that's it.
I knew.
And did
Because I'll
they
tell
get
you what.
fully funded?
Yeah.
Did they get fully
And-
funded every
and
year?
Steve knew.
Did they get fully
Steve knew.
funded every year from the town of Enfield
You-
ECS?
You.
Did we send them the whole check? Yes or no?
Go ahead.
I told my whole caucus I was.
Everybody knew. People knew. This was not some covert night meeting. Just so the people who are watching for the theatrics that are going on TV right now understand, this was not the dark of night meeting that you were snuck in to somebody's office to do some kind of a deal, right? Because legislators who've been there for 10 years didn't do shit, okay? And finally somebody gets to the bottom of it, and I'm gonna get crucified here. We deserve that money, and we're gonna get that money if it passes in the budget. And you know what? You have the same problem now that we had. You don't know whether you're gonna get it, so you can budget the same way we had to budget when we didn't know whether or not we were gonna get the money.
And that's the sad part.
The point is that you will ultimately get an increased MDR as a result, right? Because
No.
you'll get, the town will have to keep our spending the same, and there will be this carve out for you.
Right.
Correct?
Yes, because you
Okay.
can't.
Very good. Just so we're clear.
It's where the funding comes from.
And while I have the floor.
You don't have the floor.
I do
You
have the
asked
floor.
to ask a question while I was talking.
Okay, Ken, go ahead and finish.
She agrees.
Okay.
Charlotte, did you get the full ECS funding last year, including the 1.4 from the town of Enfield? Full.
We got all of our.
You got all of your money. The year before, did you get it? You got it all. The year before that, even under them, they gave it to you. You got it all. So nobody shorted the Board of Education 1.4 million. All that they're trying to do is force the MBR to go up by taking it out of our check, which, like Mike said, we can't cut your budget. So if they take 1.4 million from us, we have to cover it. And then they give it directly to you. You're getting paid twice.
Let me say that for the ECS funding, when we were made the Alliance District, I wasn't here for this, but looking in past budget books, the state sent the full 28, I'm just gonna round it, $28 million, right? For debate's sake, right? They sent it. The town in the budget book has it as 1.4 less. So the town basically had the money, but still has it listed in the budget book as 1.4 less. And they never corrected it. Now, who was ever in charge of that?
They, you ended up getting it. We don't have it now. We gave it to you.
The revenue line in the budget book, all I know is what I could find on that revenue line, right? So the revenue line in that budget book shows, your ECS hasn't changed for like 10 years, right? But the revenue line in the budget book shows it $1.4 million less. And I don't know, I wasn't here. All I can do is make assumptions, and they're not accurate, and I don't want to put them out on TV, because if they're dead wrong, people are going to get even more confused. But somebody made a decision somewhere to not include that full ECS amount there, for whatever reason. The last few years, for sure, the ECS line has been exactly what our Alliance ECS line was supposed to be, 29 and change. But there was a year previous to that where it wasn't.
Way back.
Like 3 years, I understand. Years back.
So the point is, the move that he made at the state, does that increase you 1.4 million more from the state of Connecticut? Or does it get it from the taxpayers of Enfield?
So if Alliance funding,
if he pulls.
let's give, so everybody can be accurate on this, because what I know when I got here is nobody knew anything about how Alliance actually worked. And I think that's a fair statement to be made. So I spent the vast majority of my first 3 months figuring it out, because I didn't come from an Alliance district. So I had to learn. So Alliance funding is the difference in your ECS dollars as it relates back to state legislature. Every Alliance district, with the exception of the last three, Alliance district number 34, 35, and 36, of which Enfield is one, everyone equated back to 2012 ECS dollars. So you folks came in 2023, was your first Alliance district year, right? So if you followed the same set of rules, if the state legislature, when they identified you as Alliance, followed the same set of rules, you should have went back to 2012 to see what is the difference in ECS from then to then, and that dollar amount is what you would be allocated directly from the comptroller as Alliance funding.
And it would
Right,
have been
and that's the
taken
$1.4 million.
and it would have been taken out of
it would have
ECS.
been taken out of your
But
ECS.
the state did not short us.
Hold on.
1.4.
Hold on, just because that isn't what happened.
I know that's not what
The
happened.
state instead said, instead of looking back 10 years like we did for everybody else, we're gonna look back 1 year, which is not equitable, we'll just put it that way. Because at that time, Enfield was slated to be reduced in ECS funding, right? Because enrollment had been dropping, the ECS formula hadn't been updated, blah, 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 blah. You should have been losing money over the course of 7 years, 10 years, whatever it was. State legislature said, hold harmless all those towns that were supposed to be losing money. There's like 70 towns, I believe, right now. Because of that, your ECS was frozen at the 29 million, whatever it happened to be, right? So that's why we don't get any money, because when they look back the 1 year, there is no change. So therefore, the comptroller doesn't have anything, there's no delta to send to us. So that's why we're getting nothing. In the meeting, the simple question was, to the Speaker of the House, why are we different than everybody else? To which the Speaker of the House says, I don't know what you're talking about. Am I wrong?
No.
Am I wrong? They don't even know that it was dealt with differently. So it was, hey, let's make everybody dealt the same way. And that's how come the 1.4. Now, you're not inaccurate at all. If we go back and look, it's 1.4 million, it has to come out of your ECS. If my budget stays exactly the same, 5.57%, and state legislature does what it may or may not do, then that's $1.4 million that they take from ECS and they send directly to me. I have to create a very detailed plan, and I have to submit it to the State Department of Education and say, this is how I'm going to spend my $1.4 million. So it's not like I just get to put it in like a side account for whatever I want to do with it. I have to identify how I want to.
I understand that, Steve, but you just summed it up.
Yeah, I'm trying to make sure that we're all clear.
If we fund you full and cut you a check for $29 million, what we are locked in because of our state rep and senator who have been at the state for 10 plus years, before he even got there, we guaranteed, and they didn't reduce our ECS, which they were supposed to. They locked us in. You just said it. So obviously they did something while they were there, John. So if we fully fund you and we hand you the check for $29 million and they get this passed, no, we hand you the check.
No, just for clarity, I don't receive a check for $29 million. John puts it under the budget as a revenue line to decrease the tax.
Right, and we pass it along to you. It's part of paying your
You
bills.
incorporate it into how you determine the mill rate.
So if we incorporate the 29 million into your budget, full what we got from the state last year and the year before, we give it to you. And he gets his way. When we finally get the check from the state for the 29 million, it's gonna be short 1.4 million, but we already funded your budget. And then the state is gonna send you a check directly, which overfunds you 1.4 million. Is that accurate?
Yeah, so we would receive $1.4 million from the state. You would have already appropriated as a town council a 5.57% increase.
And
which is-
we would
which is-
lose, and
Which
we
is
would
based
lose.
on
Yep.
whatever he did in his budget book. And so therefore, we would potentially have our budget and then that separate 1.4.
And
Which, by the way, is about a 2% contingency fund.
Okay, and we would be short 1.4 million on revenues.
On your revenue side. But I think that gentleman last evening came up with a lot of additional revenue for you. He was excellent, by the way.
So I just did some searching through my emails, and you became an alliance district back in like 2020, 2021. It was much longer.
Fiscal year 23 was the first year.
Well, it was 2021 that I argued this, because that's when it was misappropriated, the 1.4 was misappropriated. That's when it started. And that's what I argued on the floor, because we were taxed that year on that money. Because Ellen kept it in the budget the wrong way,
That was
It must have
22.
been-
or 22 then.
I wasn't on the council in 20.
Yeah, so I'm just saying, that's what happened. It was budgeted incorrectly,
We didn't, it's, the issue
but
is
the money, you
solved.
got it.
The issue is solved if we do nothing. The state shorts the taxpayers of Enfield $1.4 million and sends the check directly to you, however they condition it, that's it. But that was the point, and he just said it. It was to force the town to raise the MBR. It's a backdoor way of doing things to get you guys an increase. He said it. So,
Is there anything else that I could answer about next year's budget? Because that was the purpose for
Yeah,
it.
I agree.
We're doing a lot of back, and I just want to make sure.
well, no, because this is going to be a serious problem when we go to approve your budget, Steve.
Yeah.
That we've got to, do we hold back 1.4 million and wait? What's the answer? And I know you don't even.
I don't have that answer because there's a lot of balls up in the air, and a lot of them are down in Hartford.
And the
Are
answer,
Alliance districts still gonna be Alliance districts next year? I don't have the answer for that. There's
The
bills
answer-
all over the place.
right, the answer would have been left, leave it alone, because it's worked the past years, and we wouldn't have had to worry about anything. But somebody had to try to connive another 1.4 million out of the Enfield taxpayers without them knowing about it. So, I'm done.
All I would say is that we wouldn't be in any of this if way back when they were made an Alliance district, if it was equitably distributed.
But our
But
ECS
it
would have been
wasn't,
cut.
so.
But the ECS would have been cut down to where it should have been. And it got locked in where it was.
But you would have been, I would only advocate, and I will continue to, that Enfield gets treated like every other district out there.
Mhm.
Now, I don't know what's gonna happen with Alliance funding. I think it's clear that the state is very concerned about the number of Alliance districts and the ability to continue the program the way it was originally created. Because I think we all know that people could become Alliance and then they never really leave. And that's not sustainable over time.
I'll invite you to the next meeting I have with the governor about that very issue.
I'd
Because
be
he-
happy to speak with the governor about a
he is-
number of issues.
He's 100% on board with, that is a penalty for towns or Board of Eds trying to get out of the Alliance District, and it just doesn't work. I mean, there's towns that lose $5 million. And if we do the look back on our ECS, we're gonna lose money. So I don't know why we even wanna open that can of worms. So the next meeting that we have with him, I will for sure invite you in, all right?
I'd be happy to advocate for Enfield education, to whoever wants to listen to it.
Well,
Whoever wants to invite me down to the Capitol, I'm more than willing to go.
And I've said this to you before, I think any meeting you have at the state should include all our state reps and senator, because we're supposed to be a team. It's not a one-man show. So, thank you. That's all the questions I have. Anybody else? Mike?
Sorry, just math. I know, so we budgeted 78 special education children last year. We got 88, 40 left, so basically there's a delta of 37-ish, 45? 47, so what, rough math, 100,000, that's 4.7 million, where is that?
That's. So
And then, so
you're
what are you
you're comparing different special education students.
Right,
So
so what's, so.
The net special education change are kids that are in district. Those are kids that, like any other student who enrolls new to the district, you know, if you get one or two, or they're spread out over the course of the 13 years that we provide education, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's gonna be.
So then, if we budgeted for that amount, then how much have is it spent for the 78? And how much are we assuming next year? Because I remember Andy, Andy was conservative in his number, he admitted it.
Yeah, we
At the time.
budgeted for 64% excess cost.
We budgeted for, in this budget is 64%.
No, I'm not talking about the percent, I'm talking about students. Not, I get the percent, I agree with you.
The only students for special education, that's just for clarity, the only students that are budgeted on a per student basis are those which are outplaced.
So last year, I thought we assumed Andy had a number, my 78, am I wrong? I remember we had this conversation.
I believe he stated that, but that is not the way you budget.
Well, whatever that he budgeted for, what has actually happened? So whatever the number is, what has actually happened compared to what he budgeted for?
So,
We have, our special education numbers have increased greater than 78.
Yeah.
But.
Yeah,
47 of them are from outside of Enfield coming in.
Yeah.
Net.
Yeah.
The other 80-something are kids that have always been in our Enfield schools that have since been identified.
So with that, if it was a line item in your budget, would you read it, or whatever, how you budget? Again, sorry, again, I read you don't do line items, so category, whatever word you want to use. Would it be in a deficit situation, or you write on what you estimated? Just ask, because that was the big push last year, one of the reasons why you felt, you know, again, your expenses outpaced your revenue. And what are we doing for next year? So you want to look forward, what are we budgeting for next year? What do we expect? Because again, that was that was what we were having the discussion at that. You weren't here, but that was the discussion between the board and the council.
So the discussion as part of the creation of this budget wasn't about the net change in special education students. Overall, the budget was based on increasing the number of programs that we utilize to service those students.
Thank you.
The only line item that was adjusted by the numbers of kids specific are the special education outplacement line items.
Right. Good. Thank you.
All set, Mike?
Yep, thank you.
Just the admin salary increases for the board is a total of $538,000. One principal's getting almost 25% increase in pay. Can you explain that?
It's based on the administrative bargaining unit's contract. You have steps that are within that contract, so the number of years that you've been in said position, it might be step 1, step 2, step 3. And depending on what degree change you may have, if you go from your 60-year degree to person you're specifically speaking about, earn their doctorate, so they get an additional stipend for that. So it's based on their contract.
So they get a 25% raise.
That individual person who you're mentioning comes out as a 25% increase. Although I will say, I wasn't the one who negotiated that contract, but prior to step 1 and step 2, that position was drastically under salary comparative to every district around us. So my guess, again, I'm guessing, when that contract was negotiated, knowing the steps that they were at, they tried to make it more equitable or more competitive to the surrounding districts. I will say that person now is directly aligned with and making the same amount as the other administrators doing the same position at the same level.
Well, I got 2 more administrators.
Yes, because they are the same process.
The other 2 are 25.66.
Same process. Somebody went from step 2 to step 3. In terms of the process, they were undervalued at 1. I wasn't there to negotiate the step 3 dollar amount, but now they're more competitive in terms of the surrounding areas, and they're making the same amount as the other directors doing the similar curricular type of area.
Right, so just to be clear, so everybody watching, for the admin alone, this is no teachers, is $538,338 added to this budget.
549,015.
What is it?
It's 549,15.
Okay, so it's a little more, but,
Divided by 44 people.
yep, but no teachers. That's not a
Those are
teacher.
44 administrators.
Administrators, yep. Okay,
And there was no administrators that were requested to be added into this budget, even though there were, hold on a minute. Thought I wrote it down. Even though there were 14 administrators removed the prior year. So again, I'm not saying that the FTE count was where it needs to be. And hence, rather than bringing in additional administrators, which by the way, are needed in certain areas, we put the emphasis on the certified teachers. And we put the emphasis on the non-certified or non-union, really the behavior techs.
all right, I want to thank you, Steve. You were very clear. I think you were honest and precise with everything, good or bad, whichever way it went. And, at this point, we're going to have to make a decision on how we're going to move forward. Again, phenomenal budget, probably one of the best budget presentations and definitely budget books that I've ever seen since I've been on the council. So for that, I thank you and the Board of Ed for doing that. And now we're going to go into discussions. You got another question, Mike?
Yeah, look, I'm not speaking, you're here. So some of the liability you owe us, is it worth taking that off your books to cut the budget? So a 1-for-1. I mean, I don't want you to leave, you're here, I don't want you to leave and then we make decisions. I mean, for me, I like to be upfront. Okay? I'm sorry, I can't afford a 5.5% increase. So I'm being upfront with you folks. I don't want you to leave and then, oh, Mike, I want to say it to your face as an adult. Is there a number You said you got about 500,000 built in to pay off some of the, to pay us back. Again, roughly, it's 1.7 million, you know, I think was the number we ended up at last year, correct? Roughly, whatever.
I can give you the exact number.
Sorry, exactly what it was, but you don't have to. But
Oh, no, hold on a minute, Mike, I gotta show you that I got the detail.
But look, I want to be, you don't have to tell me the answer, but I want to, look, if I'm going to cut your budget, I'm willing to give you something out of it.
So you got 1.7 million was the original MOU, hair over, right? 1.701
Part of
408,
the MOU.
that was the MOU. $1,701,408.
Yeah.
We received a check back, due to Cobra and retirees, in the middle of the year, $37,775. Rather than deposit it into our activity account, I told Mrs. Cisneros, give it to Mr. Wilcox, tell him to take it off of the tab. We'll call
So
it the
you're
tab,
1.6
right?
million.
So we owe you 1.663633. I plan, yep, you ready? 1.663 633. A lot of sixes and a lot of threes. I planned on, out of this fiscal year, paying you $277,272.
Thank you.
I also removed from my budget that same payment.
So, okay, you removed it, got it.
I removed it, it's not in there.
Yeah.
If you look at the object breakdown, page 18, you'll see $0 there.
Got it.
I removed it because I planned on paying that out of fiscal year 25. So 270, where was it? 277, 272 times 2 is what I was gonna send you.
And so for people, so when you mean, it would have been this year, so before
It
the
would have
fall?
come out of fiscal year
Just want
25.
to make sure everyone understands, I appreciate it.
Yep, June 1st, I was actually gonna say, Mrs. Cisneros, please, issue a check transferring money over to the town.
$554,000.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That would be reducing our surplus from fiscal year 25.
But you can drop that into your 2% carryover line
Correct.
and carry over 1.5, and I think it's a little more than that now.
I could, if that wasn't taken out, that is considered non-lapsing unexpended funds. I still have 650,000 that I plan to pre-purchase with. So that would be the only dollar amount that I would be pulling off the 2.04 million that we currently project to have at the end of the year.
Right. So you could use that money from this year and carry it over into next year's budget if we forgive the 1.7 million.
We would put it into a non-lapsing unexpended fund to be utilized when a catastrophic something or other came down the road.
Understood. Yes.
Great explanation.
Yep.
Again, for me, and I don't want to speak for anyone else. Again, I'm willing to consider, forgiving the 1.7, again, we cut your budget 1.7. So it's a 1-to-1, you get something out of it, and it's off your books. You got your budget under control, clearly, compared to what we've dealt with in the past. Go manage your budget. As part of, again, as we talk to some of the other things, because I think your contingency is important, because I do think we have to seriously get together and start figuring out what we're gonna do on busing. I think that's something we should joint use what we have in our fund balance as part of yours, and actually come up with a plan.
And my only argument would be, rather than looking at I don't argue, I can look at busing.
No, I'm just saying.
It sounds like a wonderful spreadsheet for me to work on. But I would much rather spend some serious, significant time digging into the insurance.
I agree with you.
And I know how much you love insurance.
And we're ready to go. I agree with you. I think there's things we can already.
Because we cannot sustain 14% increases.
But again, I'm just speaking from, I'm sorry, I don't want someone to leave. You were here, I appreciate you being here, and having these adult conversations. But I also don't want you to say, oh, then all of a sudden I don't say I'm gonna try, I want to be upfront with you.
Can I just give my retort to that?
Yep.
While I appreciate the waiving of the 1.663633, right? To do it in one lump sum off of 1 year's budget versus the 1.663633 was to be paid out over a course of 5 years, I think is a little deeper of a cut than I would appreciate. I wouldn't mind taking a portion of it and saying like, oh, I'm gonna take this off your books for you, but this is how much you're getting cut. But to do it as one lump sum is a significant reduction.
And I agree with the mayor on the 1.4, we do have to hedge our bets. We have to. I mean, I think there's enough And again, I'm sorry, look, I don't care if I don't trust the state of Connecticut with my money. I certainly don't trust them with the Board of Ed's money. And again, this is just a simple shell game, wherever the money goes, and I agree, it's a backdoor way of, again, they're not worried about the MBR, it's just a local municipality. As they jam more and more things down our throat, we have to figure out how to fund. And again, that's what I'm amazed that people don't understand, this is on purpose, to force the municipalities to go uncle. And then we have to rely on the state and we become a county government, then you know what? You got no control over anything at that point. I mean, this is on purpose, and at some point, hopefully local folks wake up, because there's gonna come a point, they're gonna tell us exactly what to do, and here's your funding, and that's it. And it's actually pretty close. And I hate to say it, some of the revenue stuff I just saw from the state, where they're trying to take away local BAAs. Imagine a state doing reval for you, man, that's gonna work out well for the local taxpayer. Sorry, I'm not trying to digress here, but again, I think there's a deal to be had here, I'm sorry, I hate to wear the word, because again, but I'm also trying to do it fair, so you folks can, now that you're back on your feet, which is a credit to you guys, because you weren't, last year was tough, but your folks, you took it head on, and how do we, again, if there's ways we can talk and make a deal, let's make a deal.
Yeah, I think, so everything that I've tried to do is give you as much information as you possibly can have, which I think you have more than you've ever had. And as I spoke, and I know it's in one of the slides, I think it's the very last slide, my goal is to create a budget that we don't have these roller coasters that are happening.
Agree.
I want to be able to consistently bring you, I think the number we typically, whatever the number happens to be, whatever the percent.
1% is good.
No.
All right.
I will tell you that you will never have me here advocating for 1% budget, because all you're doing is taking a major step backwards. You cannot sustain a school system and a 1% budget.
Funny, you were throwing jokes out there, no one laughed, I threw one out there.
You got a chuckle, but it was.
But you can't expect the taxpayers to pay a 6, 7, or 8% increase every year.
No, I think we need to come in somewhere in the middle there.
So.
But I think it needs to be a consistent middle, right? I think if you wanted to go back, and I don't want to do these comparisons, but if you wanted to compare the percent increase that South Windsor receives every single year, it's much greater than Enfield's.
But their budget number, Steve.
Right, but they've gone up
budget
7,
number doesn't
8%
reflect
every
that.
year. That they've worked to get up to that budget number.
But also, look, I don't want to digress, but this, I mean.
It's a totally,
The town took over this running, the funding of the schools, which again came out of the board's budget, and the town took it over. And again, sorry.
Facilities.
Yeah, facility, which is a big deal. A lot of towns take it on themselves. Boards.
Listen, you
And I'm
want to
sorry,
send it back to me?
And
Please.
you go back.
I'll take it on.
You go back.
I'm used to it.
You go back when the state cut the board, $6 million, the town did not pass that on.
Yeah.
So I mean, you can go through every budget and find little nuances on what, so look, let's just be intellectually honest here. The town has kept you whole for the majority of whatever you were here, you weren't here. And the taxpayers, I'm sorry, fund education, and we can argue on percentages, but again, that cut, and other towns did pass that cut onto their boards, at the time. Everyone seems to conveniently forget that. It's funny when I see the budget now, it always starts the year after that. And because again, the town cut basically $6 million in services of the town side. So I mean, again, there's things, I know, again, you can look at any number and use it to your advantage. That's the beauty of a number.
Right. And let's be clear, we're still carrying the security throughout all the schools. That's $800 and something thousand the town picked up. That's a benefit to you guys.
Absolutely, and that's why I showed you the security people that were removed. So there were 18 people that were security officers that were within our budget, or that were brought in as part of our PESER. I want to say it was for $300 and something thousand that was removed. The decision was made to have armed personnel. I can't hire armed personnel, that has to go through the police department.
Do you have any security?
I had one security officer that we felt the need to bring back at the high school, because at the beginning of the year, there was a need that was identified because we weren't fully staffed in terms of SROs and SSOs. I've kept that person on. Well, hold on, yeah, but I'm talking, I know what he's talking about. Because of this, there's a direct connection for the kids with that gentleman. He's sort of everywhere for us. So I have one security monitor or personnel still on. The only other folks we have in our budget that are security related are the 6 part-time positions. We had 5 this year. I added 1 additional part-time person, and that's the people that monitor the Joint Operations Center. The room with all the cameras?
Yeah.
Okay. So we have 6
Down on
part-timers.
Crabtree.
Don, he's the head of security, but I'm talking, he's always been here. So I'm talking about the security monitors themselves.
Okay.
So I have the head of security, if you will. And then I have the 6 part-timers, and then I have the 1 security monitor at the high school.
But we are fully staffed now with SSOs and SROs.
I believe we're still short 1 SRO, but I know Chief Fox is working on filling that one.
Right.
To my understanding. It's about a training timeframe.
Right, and I think that's, well, I thought that was a floater position to fill in.
I don't want to speak on behalf of Chief Fox, but we're in a much better place in terms of number of SROs and SSOs than we were at the beginning of the year.
So, Mike, if you want to, discuss this with them in the room, my proposal would be we forgive the 1.7 complete, 1.663633.
You got it, that's a good job.
Forgive the whole thing. We're gonna hold back the 1.4 million. If you get it from the state of Connecticut, you got the money. If you don't get it from the state of Connecticut, the town of Enfield we can prepay or we can pay your insurance bill or whatever, half of it, $700,000. To help cover the cost of the 1.4 that the state didn't come through with for you.
Can you go through that for me one more time?
We forgive the 1.66, which yes, I know is a $500,000, would directly affect your budget next year by about $500,000. And the rest of it would be future years.
Mhm.
And then we are gonna take the 1.4 million out because, the system that worked, I guess, wasn't good enough, so now we're all in limbo on what's gonna happen. And the taxpayers pay enough, so we're gonna hold that 1.4, take it out. If the state comes through, you get the 1.4 million from the state, you're good. If it doesn't, if he can't pull off what he's trying to pull off, the town would cover half of it for you.
So we would be reduced 700,000.
Yep. Yep, and then we will write you a check for the balance, which is, 1.3 million, something like that. And if you do the numbers, it's over 4%. I mean, closer to 5 with all the numbers.
Where'd the 1.3 million come from, if you could explain
We're
that?
gonna cut you a check,
Or 1.3.
which would raise your budget. So if you're reducing from your 4 point whatever million dollars,
Yep, you reduced me 1.4.
1.7,
No, you said you were reducing me 1.4. You said I didn't have to pay back the 1.7.
right, but we're reducing your budget to 1.7.
Oh, that isn't.
Yes, we're taking
I
it
don't
off your
believe that's what
budget.
you just said.
Okay, maybe
So I
I
just- well, that's
maybe
why-
I misunderstood.
Listen, I would rather make sure
Yep.
we're crystal
My
clear on what you were saying.
Now I hear it. I definitely hear it now. So we're gonna forgive the 1.7 and reduce your budget 1.7. We're gonna hold back the 1.4. If the state gives it to you, there's no loss. If the state, well, the loss would be on the town, so we'd have to use the 1.4 to cover the shortage of the ECS funds from the state, because now we're short. So we don't have to go to the taxpayers for it. And if the state doesn't pull it off, we will cut you a check towards something for $700,000.
Okay, can I try to summarize it?
Sure.
Forgiving the MOU.
Mhm.
There's no longer a 1.663633 from the Board of Education owed to the town.
Mhm. Correct.
Just hold on. You are reducing the Board of Education budget by $1.4 million. Because of the Alliance possibility. Correct? So my 5.57% is reduced down by 1.4 million. Correct so far?
Plus 1.7.
So you're reducing, I just want to make sure everybody's perfectly clear. You're reducing the Board of Education budget by $3.1 million. A $4.3 million increase is being reduced by $3.1 million. That is what I would term catastrophic.
Well, you've got 500,000 of that you have in your budget.
I'm just saying that's
Right, so
that's a
you need to add that
$3.1
back
million
in.
cut.
You need to add the 500,000 back in because you were giving it to us anyways, which you no longer need to give us.
So you're, I just want to wrap my head around it. Sometimes I'm a slow processor. So I have 650,000 as a prepayment in my budget currently. What you're proposing is that I use the money that I would have sent you as the MOU, instead utilizing it as a prepayment.
No, you can use that as your 2% carryover, part of your 2%. So that.
But
Go ahead.
Makes sense.
I don't believe it would be prudent to use my unexpended funds to maintain my staff. Because that's really what we're reducing by cutting the budget. 650, I think I can come up with the one-time payments and things of that nature. I have to be able to pay for the staff somehow. And I think I'm setting up that cliff again of needing to use the unexpended fund to pay for my staff. That's just my concern. Because the staff is really what we need. And the staff is what our staff needs. So that's my, I don't know, do you want to speak on behalf of the board? Or did I summarize that well enough?
That was a good summary. I would say that would definitely put us in a precarious situation for next year's classes. I don't think that would resolve class sizes. I don't think it would resolve priority one. And it certainly wouldn't help the issue at JFK that we're having. It would not. Wouldn't be good.
So you found all the savings to go from 11 to 13 employees to 30-something employees.
Yes.
Okay, so why can't you use all those savings and still hire the 11 to 13 employees that you spoke of, Steve, that would reduce every single class size below 25? I just don't understand why, it should work, because the Board of Ed found all this money to go from 13 employees to 30-something employees. Instead of saying, oh, we don't need 5.6, we can do it with 3%, they just went and spent the money. When they know we're still trying to recover the $6 million.
So the budget as was provided to you, before all of the adjustments of February 19th, the board workshop. So if you were to remove all of those adjustments that we made, is a 4.11% increase. That's a $3.179 million. What I just heard, and again, I'm just hearing this and trying to process it, is going from 4.3 to 1.2.
Yes.
Is what I'm hearing. That's staff. The only way for me to be able to maintain that staff that I had included in here is by utilizing the unexpended fund. I don't have the 1.7 million unexpended fund, nor would I want to use it on staff. You know what I mean? And I think you would agree with me, you don't want me to use it on staff because that's going to set us up for trouble in the future.
But you are, how are you not using it for staff when you're prepaying this year's items? Or with this year money, you're prepaying next year's items. So you free up the cash that you would have had to have used next year for those items. And that's one of your savings to hire these staff members. So whether it's not like it's next year's money. It's not in the budget for next year. If we fully funded you, if you didn't have that buy down this year, including the 500,000 to us, that's where I'm at. And we're still, the town, we're so far out right now with a tax increase. I mean, that's my proposal. I'm one person out of 11. Go ahead, Gina.
I'm just gonna make this quick because I have to leave in 10 minutes. I don't support that. I would support the full ask. I think it's catastrophic. I think it is. I don't even think it covers like wage increases and sort of contractual increases that you may have. We collectively, they asked for a detailed budget. We gave them what they wanted. You're the experts. We aren't. I would give you what you asked for. That's it.
Comments? Mike, Bob, Jim? I mean, we've had these discussions.
I think you guys need to figure out if that's your consensus. If it's not, then
That's what I'm asking them.
I've done a lot of speaking, other folks, I mean.
We are,
Yeah.
no,
Go ahead.
I would like to see staff covered. I just did some preliminary here at 21 teachers, the 11 pairs and the nurse, and it comes around 2 million. That will cover your staff.
They have 4.1% to cover raises, contractual raises.
Well, they want 4 million, right? That's what they want. I mean, this is what they wanted. This was our numbers that we worked off of.
Cindy?
thank you. My head is spinning. I certainly do not support this, in my opinion, convoluted logic. It makes no sense. I understand the theory behind it, but I'm going to defer to our superintendent and to our Board of Ed chairperson, who have both been working very hard on this to present a reasonable, sensible budget. We cannot run a school system with no money. And like our superintendent stated earlier, we're not gonna have a school system. So we really need to think hard and long about what it is we're doing. We know what we're trying to accomplish, but I think we need to maybe look toward the next year to make changes, like our superintendent pointed out, maybe transportation, but certainly a draconian cut is just not acceptable. I cannot even fathom doing that. I will not support that.
Okay, thank you, Cindy. Lori, Jim?
So if their ask is 5.57, and we forgive the 1.6, and then add back the 1.4 later if they need it.
We're not adding the 1.4 back, it's the proposal, we're adding 700 back. If
So what would
they-
that percentage be? If they want the 5.7 and we consider all of that, then what's the percentage?
Well, 1.7 is just over 2%, and then 700 is 1%. So it'd be a reduction of 3%.
So it would be a 2.57? I'm still thinking about that.
Just clarify, when you say a reduction, you're talking about a reduction in their ask, not a reduction in where they are. Is that my understanding you correctly?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, we're not cutting their budget 1 cent.
So, no, because I think at one point, that's what I heard the superintendent say. So I just wanted to be clear. I didn't think that's what you were
No.
doing. Okay. That-
They will
it's
be
off of
fully
the-
funded what they had last year, plus,
Got it. Okay.
plus. This is moving
Plus.
forward. Yes. Go ahead, Bob.
But
Or, hold on, Lori, are you done,
Okay,
Lori?
yes, thanks.
Okay. Do you, Bob or Charlotte? Bob?
No, I'm not gonna interrupt.
So-
Charlotte, go ahead.
So when you said you would take out the 1.4 from ECS, and then if that didn't work, that we got the 1.4 directly, then you would only give us half of 1.4? So then you would be holding our ECS money then?
No, because we can't short your MBR. So if he pulls it off, our check is short $1.4 million. We gotta make it up. So we have to cover.
Correct. But
So to fund your exact budget last year, forget about any other increase, zero it out. If John pulls off what he's trying to do, MBR, our ECS money is shorted 1.4 million. And he's correct. It would force Enfield taxpayers to pay that 1.4 million to cover that. Because we have to meet MBR.
Correct.
So you're forcing, all you're doing, the state's not stepping up being a hero. He's putting this on the backs of the taxpayers. So we have to make sure we don't double pay, because if we fully fund you, and then the state gives you the 1.4 million and shorts us, well, now you got 2.8 million. You got the 1.4 from us and the 1.4 from them. And now we gotta pay it. We've gotta cover it somehow, because his revenue is gonna be short 1.4 million.
But if it doesn't happen, which I'm thinking most likely this isn't gonna happen only because there's so much other stuff on the table that they're gonna like only have 15 districts, like I said in the presentation. We're not gonna be one of them, we're gonna be held flat. So there's so many variables up in the air and, I asked to be, maybe we could do this for 27 because there was way too many variables. Like, we don't even know if we're gonna get money for Head Start in the future. Like, there's too many things up in the air. Like, their budget might not even be done in time. Like, there's so many things going on, but.
Their budget's not gonna be done in time,
Right.
according to John.
So, let's say,
I'm sorry to interrupt.
sorry,
I'm not sure.
No, I know.
Okay,
You
I'm
said
just-
it, right. No, I understand.
I just want to be very careful
No,
because I get the disagreement that we have about certain things, but I was just giving you my honest assessment.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm not trying to, that is just the
That was not
reality.
it, that was.
Okay, but I just.
appreciate
listen,
that information.
But I just want, there are other people listening, right? I just want people to understand. I think there's just, that is not, I don't know. And I don't think anybody else does
Well,
either.
you can't control it either,
And
so.
neither can anybody else, right?
Right.
So that just,
That was
I
a
just wanna make
heads
sure
up
that-
you gave me.
no, we had
to
an
be
honest
clear.
conversation
Yes.
about that.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to be clear about that.
so
Sorry.
if you withhold $1.4 million, then if, trying to make this easy to explain. So if the state doesn't come through, right? And you're already withholding the 1.4. Then the state doesn't come through and now you said you're going to make us whole, but not all the way. You only said half of that.
Right, well, you're already
So
whole
then-
because we're cutting you a check for 1.3 on top of that, on top of the 1.7 for giving, and
What's the 1.3 million? I don't understand that part.
Can I just,
Go ahead.
so I'm just trying to clarify. The 1.3 that I think you're talking about.
Is the balance.
I got it, but I think in your budget, the balance of the MOU is over multiple budget years.
Well, it's not
No.
1.3.
No, it's
I'm not
not.
talking about MOU.
Yeah.
If you take the 1.7 off their budget, and then you take 700,000
That's what we
Yeah.
would give them.
off their budget,
That you get.
we cut them a check because there's still 1.3 left out of their ask.
Out of the original 5.57%.
We
So
cut,
he's reduced us from 5.57%, which is 4.3 million. He's reduced us to 1.3 million. Is that what you were trying to explain to me, Bob?
no, 1.3 plus the 700 if the state don't come through.
Which is 2
If the
million.
state does come through, now you're 2.5 million,
Mm-hmm.
2.4 million.
So either way, the Board of
Plus-
Education, you're looking at cutting the Board of Education approximately $2 million.
Okay, plus the $500,000 payment you were gonna make us, which gets you close to $3 million.
Which is not in the fiscal year.
I understand, but you can use it as your 2% carryover. I mean, you're using it this year to pay us. So just keep it and use it as a carryover and hire. And I still think you're hiring too many people right now and you're making too risky of a budget.
We're gonna agree to disagree on that one.
Okay. Last year, you weren't here when they came and asked for $6 million to bail them out. Of course, I'm gonna be cautious.
And at this point this year, when they had to reduce their budget, they ended up with a budget surplus of $2.04 million. So
And that, I give Andy Longy all the credit in the world. He turned a major negative into a positive, and I think the man did a phenomenal job.
and what I'm trying not to do is have to use every penny to try to maintain personnel.
Bob?
Yeah. And that's the point that I'm making. I am very, very concerned about personnel. I'm concerned that during this particular school year, that we lost 15 staff on top of all of these other reductions, which now is well over 200. So when we look at, you know, the reductions that are being taken place based on all the conversations that we're having, the word catastrophic came out of the superintendent's mouth, and I am very concerned that if this does pass, we are not making the right decision in moving Enfield forward. That is my concern. My concern is that we're going to be totally understaffed, that we're not making a commitment to the education process. Now, Steve has done a fantastic job in the short period of time that he's been here. And I really think that over time, it's going to be that much better. I can foresee people leaving this district left and right. And then also the other thing is people on the outside maybe wanting to move in here are going to be very hesitant about, do I want to come to Enfield because of some of this activity that's going on? But my overall concern is I definitely think that it is not beneficial for this cutting of whether it's going to be 2 million or 3 million off of their budget. I really think that it's going to be total chaos. And I think people aren't going to be staying here. Qualified, I call them master teachers, are going to be leaving to go to other systems. That is my major concern. So that's all that that I'm going to just state that. You know, I've been in this district teaching, retired, still part of the system. And every classroom has 28 or 29 stories, each individual. So when we think of some of these activities that are happening in classrooms, we're looking at, kids that they might be a foster child, they might be parents going through a divorce. I mean, you name it from A to Z. It's like that in every particular classroom. I am highly concerned about the staffing and the supports within the school district. And I hope that, you guys could reconsider. I'm happy with the budget, because that maintains the system as it is right now with the increase of a few teachers. Remember, a priority was to make the class sizes a little smaller.
Bigger,
Or
or smaller.
smaller, yeah. And if we don't do that, the class sizes are gonna maintain, and we're gonna still have these issues. I mean, we're gonna have these issues no matter what, but the class sizes for control, we're gonna be starting to come down, that more so than what they are, but I'm concerned about the staffing. If we lost 15 staff this year, if this goes through, we're gonna lose double, triple that. That's what I'm gonna say. When I hear the word catastrophic, I buy that all the way. So, thanks.
Thanks, Bob. So another issue too, that maybe you can help me with is, we talk about, we got problems at the state. The Republicans put forward fully funding special education this year to get you a larger check than 300,000. And John, I got a question. Did you go in and slam your hand on the desk of the majority House Speaker or the governor and demand he raise taxes like you did here? I'm just asking because we could use that money right now. And you are the party that is shorting all the municipalities in town. So did that happen? Or did you just jump in line with your party and vote no to fully fund special education?
Look, if you want to have a debate.
No,
because
you
we all-
said-
Because we all know, Ken, you're running for state representative. We all know this is part of your plan and you're setting yourself up, so fine. If you want to have that debate, why don't we have that debate? I would love to be on a debate stage with you to talk about this.
Well, that
stuff.
would be a waste of time,
That would be
John.
great.
That would be a waste of
So
time.
why don't we, this is so like beyond this, like.
But no, you
we're
said our
trying to
state
solve
rep, you
this
said
budget.
the state rep and senators have done nothing for 10 years. They
We
put a
got an extra-
proposal,
we got-
they put a proposal forward to fully fund our Board of Ed. Who's
Which-
sitting here?
That
That
we've
wouldn't have
covered
passed,
this.
you
It
said.
would not have, the governor
But
would
did
not
you
have signed
slam your
that
hand on
bill.
his desk and say,
He
raise
would not have
taxes?
signed that bill. So what we
Okay,
got
so you
was
didn't.
$300,000, right? That's what you got, extra, which I did vote for, right? And
Yeah,
so
and illegal
that's right.
immigrants and PFLAG and all these other organizations got millions of dollars, but the Board of Ed can't get fully funded.
Well,
Boy, do we have our priorities right
We
in
certainly-
this state, John.
and you don't seem to have them right here. That's
Okay.
fine. You never intended from the beginning to fund this budget. We've been waiting for this conversation, which is why you've kept
I
it.
never intended to
Which
do
is
it,
why-
Charlotte.
which
Did
is
we have a
why
meeting
you-
at Janet's house?
I'm sorry.
And did we sit down and make proposals to you, trying to come up with an equitable agreement that the board didn't trust us and you guys said no? Steve, have I had conversations with you about trying to come up with an equitable budget? So don't sit here and tell me I haven't.
Listen,
John,
you know what?
all
can
you
sit
did
here
was
and
say,
keep bargaining,
raise taxes,
bargaining.
$750.
Listen, I'm fine. I said it a year ago and I'll say it again.
Say it again.
Raise taxes,
Okay.
$750.
There you go.
Just like all the people that came here and said, so much for listening to the people.
8
So
people out
much
of
for- That
42,000,
wasn't good
John.
enough. That wasn't good
Your
enough.
newspaper, overwhelming support, 8 people.
That article got under your skin, didn't it?
8 people,
It sure
yeah.
did.
It's fake
All
news.
knew, which is why we're having another discussion tomorrow.
Point of order.
So let's,
You're right.
so we're here to talk about the budget.
us anymore?
Time.
I would like to set some record straight here. Yes, we did sit at Janet's house and have that discussion. And we attempted to call you back and tell you that it wasn't gonna work, and we texted. And we never got the letter that said that you were gonna remove the MOU. So all the things that we had discussed, we did the math, we stayed for hours It didn't work the math that you wanted to have it work out. And we were simply trying to tell you that. And then now, we didn't get anywhere. So we went with a budget that we all agreed, well, 7 out of 9 agreed on. Because we find it important that these positions are there, then that we're setting ourselves up to not have $150,000 outplacements with our behavior techs. So we don't have 28 students in a classroom when mayhem is ensuing, because no matter how awesome we are, we can't solve all the social problems in one time. Like, we advocated for what we thought was right. And if you're gonna cut it, then you're gonna, cut the proposed budget, whatever. But you really need to think about what are your priorities for education when you make that decision.
The point was, he said that we didn't make any effort, and we did, Charlotte, and you verified that. The reason we didn't release and cut the MOU loose is because you didn't agree to a 4% budget. So,
The numbers didn't work out that you.
okay, well, we can agree to disagree, but
That's fine.
Bob,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, all right, the math, I get all the math, I understand both sides. I am a little confused at the other side saying just accept the budget, and the 1.4 million was hanging out there. So that is a little scary that the other side didn't consider that even.
so it'd be plus 1 point.
Correct, that does scare me a little bit, just saying approve the budget does get a little tricky. So I also agree with the 1.663 million as not in your budget. It does take a hit. I understand you put in the contingency, you pay other funds, I get all that. The point of the conversation with the caucus earlier was a 4% increase. I think we had consensus there that 4% would do it. We're not at that technically for money being funded to the Board of Ed. I understand your side of putting it in contingency and paying. I do understand that. But I'm okay with going to the 3 million, which is minus the 1.4, and it gets there. That's just my take on it. I understand the positions are very important. I see that. And then even the 4%, to Charlotte's point, was before the second budget, I believe, was presented, where you found some savings.
Correct. Before the tiers were introduced.
Right, so we're still talking at the 4%. In my one vote, that's where I would put it in, which would be 3 million.
Are you still forgiving the
Yes, I am. But again, that's over years. I get it. It still helps them out tremendously, which is what we're all here for. It doesn't help our budget. I understand that too. So now we got to look for a little bit more, which I'll dig in. We'll try to find it somewhere else, but that's the number I was at. And it's just because of that 1.6. I get it. I understand the mayor's perspective and where it goes. It hurts the board. I see it in the time frame right now. I understand how you can spend it, but that's my take on it. And this is a tricky budget. I get it. Ken, you kind of made it sound easy, but it's definitely more difficult than a regular person would look at this. That's my point.
Jeff?
So my priority here is teachers, 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 right? Reduce the class sizes, that's the biggest complaint that I'm getting. How do we do that? Difficult process to get to. So you talked about administrators, we have 44 administrators. A lot of them are high salary. Is there a way to reduce any administrators from this budget? And then hire teachers? You possibly could reduce, for each administrator, you might get to hire 1.5, even 2 teachers. Is there a possibility that we can reduce administrators, take that money, hire teachers, put the teachers in the classroom and reduce these class sizes? That's the biggest complaint that we're getting. There's a lot of issues, I get it. We talked about it, a lot of them tonight. But the biggest issue is teachers and classroom sizes. It's very simple to me. Those 2 things, I think it makes a lot better. I think it makes all these parents that come and speak at the meetings, these kids, if we can reduce the classroom sizes, I think we're on the right track. But it's going to involve teachers to do that. So I would ask Steve, is there a possibility we could reduce some administrators, take that money and hire teachers? We just talked about a $500,000+ increase in salaries just for administrators alone as compared to last budget. Right, am I correct with that? Didn't we say that there was a $550,000 increase in salaries alone for this budget of administrators?
Pay the next
No,
year.
he's saying get rid of some administrators.
The administrative line is a little over $500,000 for the 44 administrators that we employ.
That's an increase from last year.
Yes, for the 44 administrators we employ.
And I'm
And
asking.
I've also been on the record this evening saying that in the future, you will need more administrators. Because what the administration is being asked to do today is very different than what it was being asked to do 5 years and 10 years ago, especially with the number of specialized programs that we have in this district.
Are there other people within the school district that can take on some of that work? Can we
No.
pass on some of the administrative work on to some of the principals or those people that are vice
You have to
principals?
have an 092 certificate to supervise and evaluate per the state of Connecticut. That's your administrative union.
So I guess my question though, again, is it gonna be possible, is it possible to reduce some administrators, take that money, mostly probably high salaried people, and then hire teachers to reduce the classroom sizes?
Well, I understand what you're saying, and from the Board of Education's point of view, we would look at the dollar amount that we're provided, and I would have to figure out where the money's coming from. I think I've been on the record tonight saying that I would not be reducing administrators, that I would be looking to add administrators in the future. I understand what you're saying.
My priority is gonna be teachers and reducing classroom sizes. That's my
As was
priority.
mine, which is why there are 0 additional administrators in this budget request.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna drive
Go ahead.
home that point, one.
No, I was gonna
excuse me,
say,
one-
go ahead, Bob.
1 second. Just remember, it's not easy to just say we're gonna cut an administrator. You cut an administrator, you're still gonna have to pay their salary for a year. And I hope you realize that,
Yeah, that's one of the
okay?
things.
So think before we speak.
Okay, so,
Bob, so what are you, insulting me now?
no.
Because I didn't know something or I wasn't aware of it?
Okay,
I'm not
time out.
You just said think before you speak?
Well,
I mean, come on.
Time out.
Really?
Time out.
Really?
Okay,
Because I'm not aware of it, so I'm a little naive and I don't know the information. Was I supposed to know it all?
Ask them.
okay,
Thanks for educating me by insulting me, Bob. It's ridiculous.
time out. I had this conversation with Steve at the
I'm
budget,
always respectful to you.
and
Respectful to you, too.
it's something that everybody in this room isn't gonna be surprised by. I've done the numbers and I went through the book, and if we go back to K through 5 at our 6 elementary schools, and I know Charlotte, you can't do it, I've heard it, I've heard it, I've heard it. South Windsor and Southington both have K through 5. Their buses cost half of what we're paying. Kids can walk to school. I've done numbers by even adding classrooms. You're looking at 6 teachers between both the schools. You could have at Parkman and Enfield Street, they're sister schools. You redistrict. You're gonna have to redistrict when the referendum passes anyways. But start K through 5 now. All the parents are saying they want things easier. What's easier than one drop off and one pickup? What's easier than having all your kids under one school roof? We're gonna have to maintain these schools for the next 5 years until the referendum, even in a perfect world, if the referendum passes, in a perfect world, which I pray to God the referendum passes, our schools need to be renovated.
No, I know.
We're still not moving into one of these schools for 5 years. So in the meantime, use what we have. Look at the numbers and see if they'll work. I just did simple math. I'm not an accountant. But it looks like every classroom would be less than 22 kids. And all you would need is 5 teachers to add classrooms. Yes, I know the special ed kids, but there's got to be rooms in this school that the special ed kids can go into as well. And you're not going to get rid of special ed teachers, you're just going to divide them in 2. It needs to be looked at. It could help.
And I believe my exact statement to you was, I have not had the opportunity to look into it.
And I understand that, and I just would appreciate it if somebody could look at it.
And we're going to have a further discussion on
Okay.
Friday so that I could understand your spreadsheets or your simple math.
It's simple math.
Well, it's more than just simple math, and it would take a significant dig in to determine if it's feasible. and the costs to shift back to that model. It is not something I am ever going to, on a whim, decide to do. Redistricting alone is a major initiative, but I promised to you that we would sit and meet, and we have a meeting on the books for Friday. And then I can spend some time looking at it after I figure out what I'm gonna be reducing out of my budget, if I'm reducing something. But I was committed to having the conversation. I'm just not committed at this moment in time to say it's something that we can do.
I'm not disagreeing with that, but I think it needs to be looked at. And I think parents would appreciate it, I think teachers would appreciate it. I think it would get classroom sizes down, and I think it would make parents' life a lot easier. Cindy?
Thank you. Steve, you just mentioned a meeting on Friday. With whom is this meeting?
I had asked Steve and Charlotte after the board meeting, and so I said, would you give me a few minutes for me to just go over these numbers? I can show you the numbers. I'm not trying to hide anything, Cindy.
Okay, my issue here, I'll say it right now because I have no filter and I don't really care. You know, we have to vote on our town budget, on our board budget on or before Monday. Monday is the 12th. You got this pop-up meeting, you got that pop-up meeting. I'm tired of all these freaking little meetings
I'm
that
just
come
having a
about.
conversation with
I
Steve
am
and
not
Charlotte.
informed of, and you know what? I'm gonna start inserting myself into meetings and starting to
Can we get back
schedule.
to the budget?
Yeah, this is
Okay.
part of the budget. Because Marie is having a meeting with our superintendent,
Conversation.
which is fine. But I want to know so that I can prepare, what is it that's going to change
Nothing.
from Friday till Monday when we vote?
Nothing's gonna change
These
on
things are
this.
very disturbing. And I like to be prepared when I make a decision, when I vote. That's all I have to say.
All right, John, can you put a spreadsheet up on the board, please, of the budget with the current reductions that we have on the town side so far? I think people need to see.
Still need us?
I don't, but before I didn't. So it's up to them.
Well, it sounds like you're going into the town budget, which is our budget.
No, what I'm doing is I'm putting on the board.
I just
So
want, if we need us
everybody
here,
can
I'm
see.
happy to stay.
Right, so everybody can see, with all the cuts we've made so far on the town side, what is the tax increase? Because it's a good tax increase, okay? And then, certain people had an idea, which, for the board, which still included a tax increase, and now they're not there. So I think they need to see real numbers on what the residents of Enfield are facing, because it seems like that's the holdup here on people making a decision.
Sure.
So these are real numbers. This is what's gonna happen to the residents in town.
John, is there any way you could make that so I see it? Move closer. Thank you.
I'm right there with you.
Move closer, is that what you said? Steve, you're sitting on top of the TV. Oh, I can see better. All right, here I go.
I need you to get your paper out with the changes.
27 districts.
Oh, I'm sorry, take your paper with you. Yeah.
All right. So last Tuesday, we talked through the CIP. I also talked about the health insurance, reduce it to 14% on the town side would bring us down 140,000. Then the talks from last Wednesday, and then the talks from tonight, there would be a $3 million reduction. That would increase the Board of Ed budget by 1.3 million, but we'd also have a reduction in ECS funding of 1.4 million. So the net reduction would be 0.9 mils and an overall increase in the mill rate from what was proposed, 0.9 mils from what was originally proposed. So that would be an increase of 1.47 mils from the current budget.
So that'd be half of what it, pretty close to half of what because it wasn't at 2.8 was the original ask. So we've reduced it from $750 on a $300,000 house to, $390. And that is with the board at full funding. Now, Marine.
Not the board at full
Board's
funding.
cut
That's-
3 million.
Actually,
3
you
million.
did more than that?
It's actually a reduction.
Right, you're reducing our, exactly.
Of 1.6 million, because it's $3 million reduction in expenditures, but there's also a $1.4 million reduction in ECS funding. So it's a net it's a $3 million reduction to the Board of Ed budget, but it's a net overall budget reduction of 1.6 million.
All right, Mike, let's get what we have discussed, let's get them on the board and see where we end up. So these are other things that we have discussed, John, and if you could add them in and let's see where we go.
It was 17,000 for the additional for the legal assistance raise. We were gonna wait for contract to happen on that.
That's in there.
That's already in there.
Oh, it is in there, okay. The register of voters, the 10,000,
That's in there.
okay. Human resources was 20.
Yep, you got that?
Custodians, we had 480. What did you have for custodians?
I don't have anything for custodians, and the reason for that is last year, we budgeted 2 vacant positions. This year, we budgeted 3 vacant positions.
Right.
So there's only one increase in
We're cutting
Position.
4 more.
4 more positions?
4 more positions.
So it's-
9 custodians are gone. The town told us that they removed 3 in the budget. So we're reducing 4 more.
Oh, so it's 7.
So it's a total of 7
Reducing 7.
total. The budget already had 3 reductions. So we're just reducing 4 more. Our janitors are doing a phenomenal job. The overtime is minimal. And if you extend that through the end of the year, the math should work out that 2 custodians could pick it up and get the building done.
So I just need a number for that. I had 4.
No, that's fine. Let him just keep working
Okay.
on that.
Community initiatives,
Hold on, he's gonna
oh,
tell you.
sorry.
All right, let's,
Get up there.
So just go through the list.
Right, I'm saying, but this is yeah, so you have to say, look, I don't have to pay this, it's like bring it in there. Meaning it doesn't matter what you do.
Okay, so
And the liability stays on the
is can we minus it?
You don't get away, sorry.
Steve,
Doesn't matter what we show you.
I have a question.
go ahead.
Go ahead. What do you think is the key?
Okay, just want to make sure.
You're gonna put it up there.
Right.
He said we're gonna cut it
This is
Is that her?
You can see everything. It's logical.
So what do you think now?
Could somebody tell me where the custodian issue is, what page?
49.
What page?
49.
49. Also, I'd like to ask a question about a position.
Yeah. Right.
According to the handout, we've got a vacancy in deputy director, and we've got a vacancy in highway maintenance. So are we going to fill those vacancies, or do they remain vacant?
Well, one of them, the deputy director, we're still trying to find someone.
So we budgeted for that?
That is budget, correct.
And how much is that?
I don't know, I don't want to disrupt John. I want to say 115, 117.
If you, John.
And where, on page 49, we're looking at 2 or 4 custodians?
Three-year plan where you cut it out.
What number is it? 51, 52,
On page 50, Cindy.
on page 50?
These are regular custodians.
Okay.
There's 40 of them.
40, okay. So we reduced it by, how much?
I'm cutting it as well.
7,
Seven.
what?
7 custodians.
4 more.
Oh, yeah, 4 more.
I hear you, I'm just
How
saying.
many dollars?
I mean, this.
Oh, well, he's trying to figure it out right now.
I don't know.
What?
He's trying to figure that
Oh,
out.
okay.
I just don't.
Yeah.
It's 3 months.
I don't, no, I hear you, can't spell.
No, Steve, so that
No, no, I
deputy
just-
director position is in the budget.
It is. We've been trying to hire for, he's just,
And all that's accounted for in the current budget?
It goes down.
yeah. And the other position that's vacant, that's a whole position, see what's gonna happen, so.
Transportation.
It's just-
We're gonna-
The other
Where's the
one?
budget?
I mean, it just seems to me a little top heavy.
Well,
I agree.
he said that, last time he said that we could have another position.
Yeah, I need workers. That's not fantastic.
Not gonna lie about it, I don't think we need more employees.
Here's really consolidated.
Every other town I've looked at.
You guys are happy with, for the Board of Ed and the town? The same size town? What town is that? That's a sister town? I never considered it a sister town. What's the population? What's the population so?
It's their
I don't think it's
contractual, little lessons.
Yeah, they are. I never considered it the population. Southington is 60,000, so that's.
Deputy director, usually budget for that.
I completely understand 1.4.
One request that I have
But you're, he's paying 1.3.
No, I'm saying,
Monday,
but I mean, I think.
can we
You want to take, you want to
liability
go from
Get-
5.57. You want to take the 1.4?
a bullet sheet
No problem.
identifying?
I completely
Leave the liability away.
Well, John's gonna
Leave
bring
the
it
amount-
back
let me-
now and then.
115 is the
And
deputy.
then we'll come back around again on the next year.
Yeah,
When we get that,
yeah, I mean, we can have an email that once he finishes up.
Look, we tried to take.
I just wrote ours down.
Make that comparison.
I just wrote it down.
Yes, I wrote it down too, but I want to see.
I'm not disagreeing, no, but I didn't do anything hardcore because I wasn't
We're
sure.
even sitting here talking about it.
So this is just.
The issue there
Yeah.
Go through it. and-
I want to see it.
Yeah, no, I agree.
You know, it's not,
Something one-time projects that, again,
in the end, we're,
that's where, again, this is where it gets frustrating.
If you're talking about cut custodian, it's down to go to 5.
That's the 4 custodians.
Not taking that.
I think we need to find better way.
We're gonna look exactly the point.
I know they were hired, but what we have in the budget, I took out at employee plus 1 because what's in the budget is not all vacant positions, which would have been
Right, exactly. That's outrageous.
budgeted at a higher number.
That's why our debt service is.
So what can we just use as a figure?
So right now, that's about 301,000.
What is that?
301,000.
And then
We keep it on the same.
we had IT for 100,000 from the other night.
We gotta
And then
change
community
this.
initiatives,
We gotta-
we're gonna cut them by 100. That's all in
So
our.
guys, are you, Mike?
It is.
Mike, we're still 100,000 on community initiative.
Yeah.
And then 10,000 out of the cemetery.
Did you have a chance to
And
talk
then
to
over
any
here.
other families?
I'm sorry, 10,000 to the cemetery? We may be adding much more.
Cemeteries?
Yes, because we own them.
Minus the 98.
We can address that
Yeah, I
later.
understand it is.
Okay.
We actually had it all set up right now. We had money.
98.5, oh, I'm sorry, it's
98.5,
98.5,
John,
not
I'm
100, I
sorry.
apologize.
That'll leave 100 in the account.
How do you want to
Oh,
address that?
really?
Oh, you can hire base.
I want to sit down with them because
You sure you want to?
drive through Windsor Street Cemetery.
Well, like I said to you, I would write my down, because
And it's responsible for a lot of things.
I want to sit down with them. Are you on it?
Yes, I am.
Please set it up.
Okay, I will.
Please.
I will, because I've been working with Tom Tyler.
Well,
who's been working
we've already
with
been
Joint,
there.
And we're trying to get a deed apparently.
Let me know,
I'll call him tomorrow again. And
like the Hazardville Cemetery fence.
Oh,
I mean, right, we need answers and I'm tired
that's
of
a
kicking
prime
the can.
example. That is
Yes,
a prime-
absolutely, absolutely. All right.
I'll let you know tomorrow.
I'm waiting, John, tell me when you're
Okay,
ready.
go ahead.
10,000 for cemetery.
How are we gonna?
20,000 for historical.
How are we going to do any type of work if we take out 10,000?
Because I want to sit down with them and then
Can we
you and
always
I,
add more?
you and I will find out what's going on. Because whatever's happening now isn't working.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to see what the numbers are on the board. That's us. That's us keeping it to 1.7 months. But letting it giving it the 5,000 investments that they were going to give us.
So John, are you ready
If
to
John
join
can't
us?
pull it
Divided by
off.
12,
And
that's $33
we give
a
them a
month.
check, the one buck and two. So it's a total of $3,000.
$300,000 house.
The house assessed at 300,000, yeah, it would be $102.
So,
So go ahead.
so, right, so what, are you done with your numbers?
Yes, he's got the
Okay.
number up there now.
So the Board of Education, if we give them 3.6 million. No, 2.6 million. And we forgive the payments that they were gonna give us this term, just forgive the payments. That puts it at $3.1 million increase to their current budget, which is over 4%.
Can I clarify something?
Sure.
There is no money in next year's budget because it is anticipated to be paid out of this year's, you can't.
Absolutely, I understand.
You're double hitting it.
I understand.
So,
That's next year.
no, I'm saying that, you understand what I'm saying? You wanna try?
It's 2025,
Right.
paid, not 2020.
In fiscal year 26 budget, the one you have in front of you, there is $0 included.
To make a payment to us.
There's $0 included to make a payment because
They're using last
I was
year's
using current year's money.
We're forgiving the prepayments that you were gonna make.
Yeah,
Now, the prepayment wasn't for this year. It was for next year and I believe the year after, correct? Just next year?
Wasn't in 26's budget.
It is though, but we're forgiving it.
It's
No,
not.
it's not in the.
You will not find any dollars in fiscal year 26 for the payment.
He held them up, the contingency one, it's last year's number,
I,
but it's not in this budget.
it's not in this budget, but we're not taking the money from them. So the money is in this year's budget, will go to contingency and get carried over to next year.
Okay.
I understand, you don't want to use contingency. I mean, we're doing it with fund balance right now. So this covers your payment that you would have owed us next year. You don't owe it to us because we're forgiving it right now. Instead of forgiving the whole 1.7, we're gonna forgive this 500,000, which I think is more than one payment to us, correct? So just take 500,000 off of the 1.6633, whatever it is, and that's the balance. So you owe us 1.1 million, which a payment's not due until 2027. Okay, so you keep the 500,000 in contingency, however you want to spend it, and then we fully fund the 1.4 if the state does not fund you. So it's not gonna be in your budget right now, but if John comes and says, I tried, I couldn't get it, we will cut you a check for 1.4 million, whether you choose to have it paid for your insurance or whatever you want, it doesn't matter to us. So you're getting the 1.4, which you could use for prepaids, or we cut you a check, whatever you want. And then we write the check for the balance, which is like 1.2 something million, 1.3 million, for a total of $3.1 million, which puts you close to over 4% or over 4%.
That's right.
4.11, yeah, so it's no tiers. The
That's
only
what it
issue,
is? It's 4.11 ballpark?
a little over 3 million is 4.11.
All right.
The only issue I have with it, what I need is not things, I need people. So you want me to use my contingency fund to hire people. So every dollar I use to hire a person is a hole I created for the following year. Which is exactly what Marie had asked information about a couple hours ago.
Right. So did you put that number in, John?
Not yet.
No.
Do you want the increased number to go down from 4.3 million, 4.311969 down to 2.6 million?
Yes. And did you include that 500,000 payment from them to us in revenue?
No.
No, okay, then, because that will not come back to us.
All right, so if their increase should be 2.6 million, that means that.
Was it 500 even, Steve?
No, it's 554.
554.
You had it?
Yep, I got it.
All right, so again, we're forgiving the 554. So just, again, 3.1 million would be their total increase.
Right, so 1.7, well, that would be 3.1 would be their increase. I've got this backwards here. So this would be because you'd have, if I take 2.6 million out of their expenditure budget, all right, 2.6 million out would leave them with a $1.7 million increase. And then if they get the 1.4 million, either back from us or from the state, that would be 3.1. Okay, so this needs to be minus 2.6.
Did you forget about the? No, that ain't right. You gotta take 500,000 off of that. Because the 500,000 payment they were gonna give us, we're letting them keep. So that should be 2.1.
So if we take, their original request was 4,311,969.
Yep, minus 500,000.
So if I take out the
That's not-
2.6
That's
million.
not in that 4.3, Ken. That 500,000 is nowhere in the 4.3. Just for clarity.
So if I take 2,600,000 out of the 4,311,000, okay, that's gonna give me
So doing it,
1,196.
so if we handed you 3.1 million plus forgive the 500,000, that's 3.6 million, which gets you
The
close to
5,
5% or 4%, 5%, yeah.
so the 500, Mike, 540, 554, thank you. The 554 is out of current fiscal year.
I understand that.
So it's nowhere to be seen in any of these documents.
I understand that.
Okay,
But we're using it to offset your request.
so you want, what you're asking is to take an additional 554, add it to my 650 that I already have baked
Yes.
into this.
Yes.
So you want us to pre-purchase over or pre-utilize
Whatever you, yep.
$1.1 million worth, which means that, yeah, okay, I'm just gonna stop there.
Right. Right. I mean,
Which is very difficult to do without touching personnel.
benefits, I mean, the checks you cut to the town of Enfield for
Anything I
benefits.
do with personnel that I pay for out of this year's money, I have to build into next year's account. What I was gonna try to do is look for one-time purchases, like I would have done with the Art Besser money,
So we don't have,
so we don't have a cliff.
Oh, okay, we're
But I'll have
talking
to-
about $500,000.
I'll
So-
have to deal with what you give me.
Right, you went from 13 employees to 30-something employees. If you're worried about covering the cost, which I totally respect, I do, because I'm worried about setting us up for the fiscal cliff again, then reduce the 30-something employees down by $500,000. Because you were okay with 13 employees, Steve, and somehow it grew to 30-something employees. You're still getting a lot more employees than your original budget. I mean, and when we're done, we're gonna see what the tax increase is gonna be to the residents with everything. We cut the nonprofits in half, we cut CIP down to nothing, we've eliminated positions.
Yeah, whatever the dollar amount that we're provided, I will have to figure out what staff I can move forward. Clearly, it will not be the 33.9 staff members that I have in the budget I presented.
Right.
Because we're not at 5.57.
Right, it may be 29 employees, because that's.
It's gonna be less than that, but we'll have to
But
figure
it's a
that out.
lot more than the 13 originally proposed. Are you done, John?
Figure that out.
Well, I'm trying to figure out whether I need to take the additional
Yes.
554 out of here,
Yep.
so. All right, so that would. So
No, it's got a minus out, not add.
Yeah, it's gotta be everywhere.
what's got it,
You're at 3.15.
right. Because we're
Oh,
talking about the.
that's a
reduction-
negative.
Right, we're talking about the reduction in the current expenditures, okay? Or
Yeah.
current expenditure request. The current expenditure request was 4,311,969. So if we take 2.6 million out of that, that would leave 1.711,969. Right, and if you were gonna add the 1.4 back to that, either from the state or from us,
Right.
that would be the 3.1 million that we were
Yeah.
talking about before. So if you're talking about an additional reduction of 554 from that,
You know,
that's where we are with that.
554.
Correct.
Yeah. All right. Mike?
But we're not reducing it from our budget account though.
That's in the Board of Ed column there.
Right, but they're keeping that money. They were gonna give it to us. I don't think the math works.
Well, they're gonna use money this year so that to pay for
Right.
salaries next year.
Right, we're reducing their ask by 500,000, even though it's this year's money. We're letting them carry it over in contingency to next year. We're fully funding the 1.4 if the state can't. So that's 1.9 million right there. And then we cut them a check from the town for the balance. So the check from the town would be what raises the MBR.
Right. But it's still.
The rest of it wouldn't.
I have to admit, I'm not.
I agree. That is very,
Because again, it looks like they're only getting 1 million from us, right? They asked for 4.3 or 1.2 million. And then we said we're gonna give them the 1.4 back.
but that's not in there.
Right.
So you got to minus the 1.4 out of that number too, because we don't know where it's coming from. It's either going to come from fund balance, once John lets us know how he made out, or it's coming from the state. But either way, we give them our guarantee, we'll cover it if the state doesn't.
I get it, but.
See, so their total ask is what, 4.2 million?
4.3.
4,311,000.
4.3 million minus 1.4 minus 554,000.
Can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
Just take that right off the table. Like, let's stop talking about the MOU.
Mhm.
I agree.
And let's just let the MOU be the MOU. It's a signed contract between the Board of Education and the town.
It saves us $500,000.
No, it doesn't save us anything because it's not in this budget.
Right, but we.
I understand you want me to reutilize it,
Right,
but it's confusing everything else. Just leave the MOU the way the MOU is. The only thing that will happen different is my non-lapsing amount is going to fluctuate because of it.
so I'm gonna give you
Yeah.
$500,000, raising the MBR, which forces me to pay it for the next 500 years. For you to give it back to me the next day? That makes no sense.
Ken, if you want the 500,000, what you're really doing is you're taking the 1.4 and you're taking another 500,000.
I'm not taking the 1.4. If he can't produce it, we said we'd fully fund it. So you're getting the 1.4.
Correct. If.
No,
That-
either way.
No, I understand. Like, if I either get it from the state or I get it from you.
But it's not
So
gonna be.
let's just call that let's just call that the 4.3 million.
Mm-hmm.
Whether I get 1.4 of that through you or whether I get it through the
Doesn't
state of
matter.
Connecticut, either way, I'm at 4.3 million,
Mm-hmm.
right? So let's just start there. So I've been reduced MBR wise, 1.4 million, knowing I might get it from the state. And if it doesn't come through, I'm gonna get it from you, which is gonna change your MBR by the, whatever. What else do you wanna reduce?
Well, it was the 500.
Take the MOU off the table.
Okay.
Let's leave the MOU right where the MOU is.
Well,
So now I'm reduced 1.4 million right now. Currently. Where does that put us?
If we're taking the MOU off the table.
Then I'm gonna have to pay you $270-something thousand.
Correct.
Yep, I fully understand that,
Right.
because I'm gonna meet my obligation to the MOU.
Which means I need to fund money for you to pay me back. Next year or the
No.
year after.
No. I'll figure out where it's coming from. I have a non-lapsing fund. you don't need to fund me $280,000. I can give you the $280,000 with a check. Don't leave the MOU. Let us figure out how we're going to get you back your money. I'm just trying to make
You
this
have no
simple.
revenue stream other than us and grants. So the money's coming from us. Whether you save it from the year before or not, you're gonna need that money in your budget to have it extra.
Unless I use it from our district activity account, which is leftover revenue stream from previous grants.
How much was in there? That was one of my questions, because you
There's
mentioned.
there's a variety of accounts that make up that.
Okay.
I mean, every school has an activity account, the district has an activity account. I'm
Right,
funding the
but you
full
use some of it.
technology plan out of the district activity account. I'm just trying to make it like, a little simpler for like everyone else that's listening in who doesn't like live and breathe these numbers like we have been for the last whatever number of months.
Well, I don't know what's difficult. You owe us, you have 500,000 to make payments to us that we're saying, don't make them, keep it.
Well, it's not 500,000. I have 1.663633 divided by 5 is what I owe you.
Now you're getting confused, and we're talking about this year right now. You said you have $554,000.
Because I was gonna make an additional payment
Mhm,
so that I could lower it for the Board of Education every year thereafter.
mhm.
If I don't make the additional payment, it's like 300 something I owe you. That, again, I don't, that, it's more dollars, more numbers we're throwing out there.
4% increase. Put it on, what's a 4% increase total for them?
$3,097,182.
What's it look like if they give us 4%?
That's what he's figuring out.
Yeah, forget the MOU, 4%.
That's what I've been trying to.
That's what I'm saying.
So it's essentially 3.1 million.
Right.
Can we just see what the mill rate looks like?
4% versus 5.1.
Which is what you were,
That's what I said.
and actually, I'm willing to go the full 1.4.
That's right.
So it'd be 2 point,
Just take the 1.4 out for now.
right, which goes to 2.9.
Right.
Okay. Your ask is.
Which is
4.3. $911,969. That's what I have. Perfect.
Yep.
That's what I said.
Which is the full 1.4 million.
So.
3.1 minus 1.4.
4.3 minus 1.
4.3.
So going starting at 4.3,
So you're fully funded.
down to
I know you're saying that.
3.1 million, which is $1.2 million reduction.
You're right, it is a full fund.
And then 1.4 from the ECS.
It's a 4% increase?
So, well, the combined two would be, yes, would be a 4% increase. So what we would need,
I understand what Ken is saying, that's fully funding, I get it.
okay, so at 4.3 million minus 1.4 million would take us down to 3.1. That's where you want it to be. That's a 4% increase. And
Okay.
then on top of that, okay, now we've got the ECS question, so we take out an additional 1.4.
Mike, are you listening? Please?
Okay, so $4.3 million was their original ask. And you said you wanted to get down to 3.1, which would be a 4% increase.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's here, minus my $1.2 million gets me down to 3.1 million. Okay, and then you have the ECS question on top of that. So minus an additional 1.4 million for that. That doesn't gonna impact the mill rate because it's also a revenue reduction.
Right.
And you're gonna get the 1.4 million either from us whenever the state budget's passed or from the state.
Which we can take out.
I have a question.
Cindy.
Okay, so they're going to be short their request by 1.5, is that correct?
The way you're doing the math now, yes, that's not what I'm saying.
Because it was 5.5% request, and now they're gonna get a 4%, which is a deficit of 1.5.
Yeah, that's it, it's just, no, they're not getting much of an increase.
Okay.
It's not a deficit.
So, how is that going to adversely affect the Board of Education budget?
If you went under the 4, then we don't get any of the tiers.
You don't get what?
Any of the tiers, which are the additional positions.
No new positions?
Right, because that's the
No,
purpose,
there's not.
right? Yeah.
No, none of these positions.
Right.
But there are positions up here.
Right, so that's none of the tiers.
Right, so how many positions would that get you?
Probably around 16,
16,
right around 16.
okay.
Thank you.
And then you just, the 1.7 stays on the table, you make the payment and.
Can I ask, I just want to make sure. John, 4.3, you reduced a 5.57% increase down to 4%.
I went based on the, yes.
I'm just trying to keep it in my head because it's getting late and I'm getting tired.
So the 4.3 I was talking about is the dollar increase.
Yes, 4.3 million was our dollar amount increase associated with 5.57%,
Correct.
right? So you reduce that down to 4%, which comes out to be like a little over $3 million.
Right, 3.1 million.
And then from there, you're gonna say the 1.4 million associated with Alliance funding
Yes,
is gonna get reduced.
yes. And that's.
So that puts us at like 1.6-ish. However, if I get the 1.4 back, I get it from the state of Connecticut
Or from
or from you.
Right, so your net increase.
That's what I'm clear on. So my net is 4%.
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make, that's what I understood. I just, sometimes repeating it helps.
Well,
The
it's
old
good to
noggin.
clear, it's on the record too, so there's no shenanigans, no nothing. The only thing this doesn't help you with is it doesn't raise the MBR, which is good for us, bad for you.
You said it on the record.
So it gets you to 4%. And you're right, the MOU is a different situation. I agree. I think it's getting too confusing with the MOU.
All right, so is there consensus on that?
That's where we're at. I'm fine with the 4%. Yeah.
Bob?
Yeah, that's what we
Lori?
talked about.
Jim? Jeff?
Yes.
I want to know how many teachers it gets us and how it affects our class sizes.
It gets us 16 more positions.
How does that affect our class sizes?
Yes.
Well, he said 13, there wouldn't be a class over 25.
My number one priority remains the same. Class sizes.
Where does that get us in class?
I'm not gonna commit to that at this moment. I gotta go back and look, and what I'd like to do is, there's obviously been a lot of shifts and hires and things like that. I hired a new girl literally today. We're gonna go back in, I'm gonna plug her in the budget. If I had her budgeted higher than where she came in, then that's, it all impacts it.
I have a quick question. Charlotte, is tier the same as step, or it's different?
No, so tiers, we had, all the cabinet came together and they made tiers of magnitude of importance of what we need to bring back.
Okay.
So there was, like the first tier had like 4 positions on it. And the second tier had like 4 more.
I just didn't know if you were the same.
No, steps is like contract language. Tiers was just for the budget.
Thank you.
Yep.
So the new mill rate would be it's 32.02.
With a mill rate increase of 1.46.
That's correct.
So we cut it in half.
Yeah.
So instead of $700 tax increase, it'd be $350 tax increase. Ballpark.
Based on an assessed value of $300,000, it would be 438. dollars.
If they pull these
Or less.
Now I'm coming back to you.
Correct.
$4 million.
Right.
But you guys are on the record.
So-
You're getting it.
So, all right, come on, everybody says it's getting late. So, right now, without touching the revenues, that is a 1.46% mill rate increase, which is an increase of $438 for the value, assessed value of a $300,000 house. So it basically just under, or just over cut in half the request, because it was 700.
John, how much is it to get to 3/4 of a mil? Just curious, how much money?
Get to 3/4 of a mil
Basically cut it
increase.
in what, almost half. Almost
Yeah,
half.
it's gonna be over about, a little over $3 million.
And how much we're using in fund balance right now?
3.8.
3.5, I think.
I think it's 3.8.
3.8.
3.877.
I know I may be in a minority, but I'm okay using fund balance, because I think we're in a very good position. Maybe not the full 3 million, maybe that's too much, because, but what gets it under a bill, John? I certainly don't recommend that another 3 million.
But remember,
We haven't changed.
we still
revenue.
owe them $1.4 million,
Right, which is in there.
which would, no, it's not in there.
It's being used out of the fund.
So that would be coming out of fund balance to cover that cost.
I get it, but we're still in a very healthy fund balance position.
Mike,
We
how do
have
you
28
feel about
million in
revenue?
fund balance.
No,
Maybe we're mistaken.
4
It's the
million.
same, it's the same.
Minus the
Either
million
or.
for Hernandez.
I'm just saying either or, I mean,
But
if we
again-
reduce our revenues, we're basically reducing what we're gonna get in fund balance, so it's.
Same
I'm not- Yeah, it's the same thing, so I don't disagree.
Yep.
I'm not saying we shouldn't do that, we're being more aggressive. If you wanna do it in revenues, that's fine. I'm not arguing with him, saying it just depends what you call it. It's the same thing.
Well, because the overestimate on the revenues.
I'm not arguing with
is-
you.
No, she's,
No, I get it, I just,
I'd like to get under a mil, but I don't wanna
They don't have
use,
the prior year numbers.
I don't wanna use 3 million.
well, it's not using 3
No,
million,
no.
it's using 6.8 million.
I'm sorry, you know what I mean?
yeah.
Apologize.
And that, now we're doing exactly what they don't wanna do.
We're gonna be the same.
That would be an increase of fund balance usage of 1.7.
I'm sorry, I think it's.
So what's the total out of fund balance now, if we do for the, with?
5.5.
And what's our balance, what would be our balance in fund balance?
23
No,
million.
23 million.
No, it wouldn't, it would be 18 million.
18.
We're 24 minus $1 million for Hernandez, that puts us at 23.
You gotta put the 1.4 in there in case it doesn't come through with the state.
Which is 21.6.
So we're right around 20 million, a little under 20 million.
Well, this,
Think about this.
Right.
yeah, we're more closer to
Okay.
And if we take,
19.
We were lower than that last year.
Right.
We were like 16, 17 after the sewer. Yeah, it
But
was
it's the
like
same
8
thing,
change.
it's the same bucket. If you're more aggressive with your revenue, and you don't get it.
Reductions of what we've done.
Oh, yeah, he will when we're done with
For
this.
Monday.
yeah.
I want them tomorrow. So when tomorrow night, we have them. Because people are gonna be asking questions, and we should have the information available. Even if they're not watching tonight, print out some copies of what we're thinking and hear what they have to say.
As long as we get that.
So, something dry.
More water bottles, that's what it is.
Right.
I mean, I'm only one person, I mean, I know folks that get squirmy using fund balance, and I get it, but.
I don't think we have a choice.
They say the number was 1.7?
Yep.
So minus
I
7.
mean, look, we have to show, we're asking people for roughly 170 million referendum in February, as everyone wants to pass. We have to show some.
That's 80.
All right, so what that means is we would be at 15 plus, essentially, we would be at about $20 million in our fund balance.
Even after the 1.4, the one for Hernandez. and-
Yeah, This is the Hernandez one, the $1,089,000 right here.
I can't see it in the back here.
The
Okay.
$1,089,000 is the Hernandez. 1.7 would be the additional usage, and 1.4 would be the ECS funding if we need to use it.
And that's taking out,
And that
like
leaves us 20 million?
3,877 to fund the budget. That's the 3,877 is what we're gonna use to fund this budget.
That would be 3,877 plus the one.
It's already in there.
5.5.
Okay, no, I'm just making
We're now
sure.
around 5.5.
So, okay, and it's still gonna leave us with how much, 20 you said?
20 million, yes.
So this is our four.
I know you don't like to do it. Again, look, I've used more, so you can say we want more.
What does that mean?
It's 0.96 increase. Well, give me a minute. Let me get back to that. Only have, cut down on
That's
the
what,
number of
that's
open
what residents are gonna ask, is
spreadsheets.
what is it?
So it'd be 31.5 mill rate.
Yeah, this is average cost.
Everything is short.
For a house assessed at $300,000.
282 a year. $23 a month.
This is what you do.
78 cents a day. Oh, no, you gotta, depends where you get your coffee. I make my
So
own.
we,
All right, so is there a consensus with this the way it is?
Yes.
Jeff?
Can I make one more cut and move some money over?
Sure.
All right, I talked to Steve before, so the deputy director position for DPW that we have not filled, it's been vacant for a while, tried, not happening.
Well, I would like to talk to Donald before I mean, you can do it.
I don't support that either.
No, I'd like to eliminate that and give that 115,000.
I asked that too.
Well,
I guess, I mean,
someone's gonna stroke out here. I gotta advocate for Donald.
if it was so important, you think we would have recruited someone by now?
Well,
And that's why things aren't getting done.
it's hard to recruit people to work here.
I'm not saying you.
Yeah.
There's
I
people
mean, I'm getting
that,
people
people
working with
within
that, no.
DPW that maybe should try and recruit someone to fill that position. You know, I'd like to try to revisit that down the line. If we can't fill it, let's take the 115,000, put it to our Board of Ed, and then down the line, if we come on to some money, then let's try to fill it later on.
I would be okay with a co-leader position. And start there for now, but we can discuss that.
I don't want to do it. I know he's gonna screw that.
Mike. Sorry, so Jeff made a proposal to reduce one of the deputy director positions at DPW because it hasn't been filled. I don't support it because we're buried now, and with the changes that happened, we're not done with changes yet. And that's why we're waiting for that position to get filled, and don't you have somebody in line for that?
Didn't we just hire a deputy director?
One, we had none.
We had one that we thought was coming back, but he,
I'm fine. I
Did
think
we
what
talk
we have
about
here,
it in our committee?
I think everyone's compromised. Jeff, I appreciate, look, again, I don't want to dismiss what you're saying, because I agree, look, we can always find other cuts. Not argue with it, but I think, look, I think everyone, to your credit, who's sitting here, gave a little bit. I know we're not all, but that's a negotiation. You're not supposed to walk out of here happy. You're supposed to be happy in that. So.
This is a 4% increase to the Board of Ed, one of the largest they've gotten.
I understand, I'm
be
asking,
proud, Jeff.
I'm asking for 115,000, that's all I'm asking for.
And I asked.
And that's 1.25 teachers. I really want to know how many teachers this gives us and how this affects our classroom.
He said 16.
You can't tell us what the classroom size is. And I don't expect them really to be able to tell us that now, but estimate maybe?
25. That's an estimate. I mean, I'll be able to give you the hard numbers tomorrow, because I don't have the spreadsheet with me. But basically, the 4% brings us to the level of everything prior to all of the additional tier work, which was our initial ask for reducing class sizes, which brings it to 25. The additional tier work brought many of them down to 22. Actually, it brought all of them down to 22 except for one grade level in one school.
and hopefully with the busing contracts, if you can negotiate that a little better on your behalf, that would be a benefit for you.
I would remain committed with every savings that I can identify between now and as we go on. You know, I believe the Board of Education provides me the ability to go out and hire staff. So when and if I can find additional savings, I will be reallocating them to class sizes. That's our number one priority.
John, can you look back and see the last time the Board of Education got 4%? Is that a big task?
I have to find, I think I still have that.
I'm pretty sure in my research, I went back to like 17, 18. It wasn't during that time.
I can tell you that the last time the board got over that was,
Jeff got one. Schumann.
yep, it was.
So if it was back when Jeff Schumann was superintendent,
Probably 2015.
yeah, so you're over 10, you're 10 years.
So 2015, isn't that when we took over the buildings?
No, that was
Before
2005.
that.
Oh, right.
Well, before that.
That was the year before the cut.
You can.
All right, I think, is there consensus to go forward?
Can I? I don't think it'd be.
Did you adjust the police? I think I walked out of the room that I didn't see the cut off the police.
The overtime.
$100,000 for
Yeah.
the police
Was that taken
overtime.
off?
Did we give that one to you, John?
We're giving them salary increases, and so the overtime goes up corresponding. We haven't increased their overtime in years. We've held it flat, but every year, you know, so we kind of keep squeezing that excess. I know a lot of it comes from salaries, because you have a vacant position, but not all of it. And so I'm a little concerned about, yeah.
John's not comfortable cutting the overtime.
Okay.
Because it's never, he said he hasn't raised the rates that they've gotten, and I think we're.
I think we should revisit, because I think what we talked about is the right approach, where we reduce that and hire staff. I mean, I think we're on the same page. I don't know, I don't want to speak to you, but I think it's good. That's fine, look, I'm good. I mean, I'd like to be lower, but I'm not compromising.
There's no consensus for removing the main 115, that's settle, compromise.
When I came in, it's one of the largest increases they've ever gotten. You should be happy with that.
Motion to adjourn?
I'll go with the,
I don't think anybody's.
go with the green then. No, there's not, I don't have the votes, I lose, it's fine.
Motion to adjourn?
Mike made it, I seconded.
You had consensus,
Mike,
right?
you're a yes?
Yes.
Bob, yes, Jim, yes, Laura, yes, Jeff, yes.
Okay. So now that makes my comments
All right.
more sense.
So Cindy, John, Bob, this is what we're gonna go with. John Wilcox will give us a printout tomorrow. So it's a 4% increase to the Board of Education. And it's a 0.94 mil increase to the residents, which is how much, Steve?
282 a year.
282 a year on the home value of 300,000.
Just so you know, I do not support this. I support the original request from the Board of Ed, 5.5.
1.7, which got us to about 20 million. And that includes the 1.4. I have a feeling we're gonna end up giving them.
I agree, I think.
Should have just been left.
You leave Thursday?